This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me!
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you. Our slogan may be all the galaxies, all for you, but tonight we get to go back to the galaxy far, far away that started this podcast 8 years ago. It was our affinity and our affection for the Star Wars universe that made us want to expand to other universes, talking about Marvel, DC, Jurassic Park, a lot of the things that you saw in that opening promo video if you're watching on YouTube. And tonight we get to kind of do a little bit of a throwback, talking about a character that has basically been a part of my childhood since the 90s into the early to mid 2000s. This character has been super prominent on the big screen, on the small screen, live action and animated alike. And tonight we get to cover him, and we get to cover a little bit of Star Wars Celebration after our buddy Ben is able to join us on the program. He's running a little bit late tonight, but thankfully the main man himself from Fandom Empire, our partners and broadcast friends here with us, Shawn Giroux, joining us, talking about who he has said privately and publicly is one of his favorite pop culture characters, period. Shawn, I am really excited to talk about Kenobi with you tonight.
Not one of, but my actual
is the favorite.
I know,
dude. That is freaking awesome. And I almost forgot to do something on the technical side of things for Ben's sake, because he does still try to publish this stuff after the fact on places like Podbean. And I almost forgot that I promised him I would record this stuff so that it would be easier for him to publish it later. So
I'm going to an audio for this for you too, if you guys need to. So
we may do that. He just likes to have backups. So I'm going to hit that record button there. And now we can officially start the program. It's the IPC podcast, broadcasting live on YouTube with our friends at Fandom Empire. And I'm Zach, really, really excited to be having this discussion tonight. I know it sounds a little bit redundant to those of you that are joining us live, but I am really, really excited to be talking about Kenobi and then talking about Celebration when Ben is able to hop on the show. Shawn, you've done a lot of stuff on Fandom Empire talking about it already, but a lot of what you've been able to do with those other videos has been asking other people questions. So now you get to be riding shotgun instead of in the driver's seat, which is my job tonight. Let me just get your overall impressions on this show, and has it improved your perspective of Ewan McGregor and the character Obi-Wan Kenobi? Has it changed it in any way? Did it live up to the expectations so far? Has it not? Like, what are your overall impressions on this show?
There was a lot of questions there, so I'll just start with you.
I know. I'm really excited. So just initial impressions, and then we'll dive into the nitty gritty after that.
So keeping in mind that Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite pop culture figure ever, period. I challenge anybody, any Star Wars fan or movie critic that has watched all the Star Wars material, to find me a better performance in Star Wars than Ewan McGregor throughout the first 3 episodes of it. I think the series has some technical issues on the principal photography stage, and stagecraft, I think, has had some glaring issues, but it's a developing technology. You're going to have there's going to be bumps in the road as you go here. But in terms of the story, I'm really, really happy with it. That said, you mentioned we've covered a lot of content here at the channel. I will say this, trying to do that while working almost 60 hours a week
Shoot, man.
has been, I like when I first seen episode 3, there's no way I appreciated it at all because I was falling asleep halfway through the episode. And even our recap here, I remember I like messaged Johnny in a private chat. It's like, this isn't working. I'm done. I need to go to bed. And I had to watch it the next day. So
Oof.
I would stress anybody watching this series because I know a lot of people do the stay up and watch it in the middle of the night thing.
Mhm.
Make sure you're awake and alert. That'd be like,
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. I finished I want to say 7 hour long road trip, and then like not an hour after getting back to town, I was watching the episode, and I needed like some caffeine in my system just to be able to stay awake and alert enough. But what was really fun was I've been able to get my fiance involved in the Star Wars universe with this Disney Plus television, and we're going through the movies as well. We've done 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, and now we're debating whether we do like Solo and Rogue One or do we go to 7, 8, 9. But I I've been taking her through Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, and yeah, I'm with you, Steven. He's commenting. He's out on the West Coast, so he's lucky enough that he gets to stay up until midnight. Um, but there are some of us who are staying up till 2, 3 a.m. to try and make sure that we catch it, and that's just near impossible to do. But I mean, if you're able to have the coffee and catch the episode, more power to you. We watched it like the day after, I guess, because it was a Thursday. And I don't know if Ben's going to have to bleep this in post op or not. It depends on how PG-13 he wants the episode to make it. But the cliffhanger nature of the end of episode 3 had my fiance, who's not a huge Star Wars fan, although I am wearing a shirt she got me when she went to Disney about 6 to 8 months ago.
that's bleeping awesome. There, see,
It, I see what you did there. Yeah, but I figured it was appropriate because the Empire is like a really big, prominent piece of what we do in the Kenobi series, and I really, really liked the role that they played in Episode 3. But circling back to the end of the episode, not giving away any spoilers just yet, but it had a cliffhanger end to it, and when it cut to the credits, she sat up in her chair, watched it show like the people credits, and then said, "Ah, tits." She wanted more and was mad that there wasn't more to watch. And I'm like, that is the nature of watching stuff week to week instead of the binge format. Because she wants to get caught up on Stranger Things. So right after that, we watched a couple episodes of the very first season of Stranger Things, and you can binge all of that. But Kenobi and Boba Fett and Mando, you've had to watch week to week, and she was none too thrilled with how that episode the other day finished up. So I like that this show is accessible to a lot of different people. I like that the Star Wars fans like myself and you, Sean, are getting into it, but I like that it's accessible to the casual viewer as well.
it's a mixed bag a little bit for me. I love the series, but if you don't mind, I'm going to get rid of the negative stuff right off the bat, just because I don't want to focus on the negative. You guys,
Okay,
do
sure,
focus
let's go for it.
on it. My negatives are small. I was talking to actually someone who's on here once in a while, hasn't been on in a while. I was talking to Jake Damon this week, and I said to him, if you really know what you're looking for, the stagecraft in episode 3 stands out like a horribly sore thumb. And he's like, I'm not sure I've seen that. He has other issues with it. And I'm like, this is what I'll do. I'll take a few screenshots and I will color in where the stagecraft is. And as soon as I did it for him and some another buddy of ours that comes on the channel, Ian. And Ian was like, "Oh my God, you're so right. That's a screen. That's not actually mountains there." I'm like, "No, it's not." And you can really tell when Leia and Kenobi are walking. And I do think that technology is going to get better. But at the end of the day, this is a character piece. It doesn't need to look the absolute best for me. It might be one of the true first character pieces we've gotten in Star Wars. It feels like Logan a lot. It's not rated R like Logan, but like the relationship dynamic there too is definitely gives me that vibe.
Yeah, I can see that. The lone wolf and the cub format, as our friend Dan Grievous has pointed out, and he's been on very vocal on social media talking about how he wishes there were other storytelling concepts that were explored upon, because you kind of have that with Mandalorian, and now you've kind of got it with Kenobi, where there's a lone singular character that's now being accompanied by another character that's younger and seeing the world through a different lens. And like, I get it that there are other types of storytelling, but in the concept of Kenobi, I'm not exactly sure how else you're supposed to tell it. Because unless you want him to like just be having these thoughts with himself all the time, he needs to be able to communicate his thoughts and his regrets and things to somebody that's going to listen and offer a fresh perspective. And so yeah, there's definitely some stagecraft concerns, and there's probably some storytelling concerns for those who want to be like super nitty gritty. But as a whole, I'm kind of like our friend Steven here, who's in the comments with us live. He says, I'm a simple man. Give me a story showing how Kenobi is impacted by tragedy of what happened that brought him to this point, and I'm good. Enjoying most of it. I think that's the general consensus that I've seen on my parts of social media. Granted, there are a lot of other parts of social media that have gone way off the deep end, particularly on Instagram. And I don't know how much of that we want to address on a peaceful show like IPC, but suffice to say that there are some parts of the internet that claim to be Star Wars fans that are not backing it up with their words or their actions right now, with the oppression that they've been given to Moses Ingram and the types of slants that they've been giving to review sites like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. I have no patience and no tolerance for that kind of crap whatsoever, and really don't want to give them too much airtime and too much attention, because there are so many other great things about Kenobi that are worth talking about, that the toxicity just isn't one of those things that I want to give a whole lot of attention to. It's there, it sucks, I hate it, but I love the show more than I love their toxicity. I'll put it that way.
All I'm going to say is this: we put out a video today, which I did not tag properly, so it's not done too well. But if you go through the information in that video, we touch on that, and I know these guys aren't talking spoilers here, so not deep spoilers. So all I'll say is go watch that video, and it dives into the Rotten Tomatoes thing. And look, all you need to look at is before Ewan McGregor made a statement, it was like 75%.
Mm-hmm.
And after he made that statement, it was 49% within 24 hours. And like, I wonder where that went. The only rating that matters on Rotten Tomatoes is the critic rating. Sorry, but it's true. And the critics have this thing almost at 90%. So, and critics are typically not overly fond of Star Wars.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, since 1977, they haven't been super fond of anything Star Wars, and so to have that type of reception is encouraging for sure. We're halfway through the series. We've got 3 out of the 6 parts that we're supposed to get, and I guess I'm going to go ahead and go into spoilery territory, because you should have seen it by now. I'm going to be honest. Like, if you're part of the Star Wars fan base, or if you are just keeping up with Disney Plus television in general, I would assume that you will have seen a Wednesday release by Friday night. Like, that's 36 to 48 hours that you've had to try and get caught up on what's going on. So we're 3 episodes in. We've had basically a Obi-Wan backstory, seeing what life is like for the Jedi and seeing what life is like on Tatooine. We've had an episode where like the hunt is ramped up a little bit, like the pursuit comes very, very close to an encounter, a narrow escape at the end of the 2nd episode. And then by the 3rd episode, we've got a full-on encounter with the Dark Lord himself, which has gotten some really positive reviews and some really mixed reviews. I'm curious your take, Shawn, on how the storyline has progressed and what stuff we have seen halfway through the series.
I swear this is my last negative thing because I literally only have two. Sorry, I guess the most Ingram thing that you brought up is obviously very concerning.
Right.
And she definitely deserves everybody's support out there. So even if you don't like her performance, she doesn't deserve
You
any.
you've seen that there are Star Trek actors that are backing her up too, right?
Oh no, I haven't, but that's flipping awesome.
Yeah, yeah. One of the lead actors from Star Trek Strange New Worlds posted on his Instagram, Anson Mount, and said that Star Trek is also showing their support of Ingram, even if they're from different galaxies. It's the same, same type of family, and so like it's becoming a cross fandom support system, which I think is awesome.
That's amazing. I didn't know about that, but that's anything to unite against hate. I think is
Hmm.
2022. If you can do it,
Right.
definitely do it. The episodes aren't long enough. I'm not trying to nitpick, but at Star Wars Celebration, literally the day of them doing um the two episodes debuted that day, I believe. Um Ewan McGregor did an interview and he's like, it's 6 1 hour parts. Well, I mean, episode 1 was close, but episode 2 was like an actual runtime, like 37 minutes or something. So like selfishly, I want to see more of it because it's so good that like I really am enjoying it.
Right.
So hard not to get worried about it ending. But in terms of the story, like it starts, I think how most people should have seen it starting. Like the guy has lost Anakin, Qui-Gon, the Jedi, Padme, Satine, literally everything.
Yeah. He's got nothing left. The dude is down to like emotionally he's destitute basically. Oh, yeah.
Um,
Maze ball. When did that word become a thing is what I want to know. Maze balls. When did that become a thing?
I've never understood the narrative behind I don't want my Obi-Wan Kenobi to be going through PTSD. Like I love the take on it because it's a realistic take. It's how he should feel. It humanizes him. And plus, uh this isn't Star Wars. This is basic conception of building a story, whether it's in a TV series, a book, a video game, a movie. If your character starts at point C and stays at point C and ends at point C, that's not good storytelling. You got to have some sort of character development in it, and it's been amazing, man. Like episode 1 set the tone. I love the dynamic between I love the dynamic between Ewan and Joel Edgerton playing Owen Lars. I thought I wish we
Mhm,
got more of it. It was really good.
mhm.
And it's also sad. Like I don't know how you feel about this. Thanks. I just saw your private message. I don't know how you feel about this, but like that's like for me growing up as a kid, Obi-Wan was my hero, right? Like,
Mm.
uh, so to see him like this as an adult, it's actually I don't want to say rewarding, but it's cool to know, hey, even your heroes can go through times where they're down, and this is absolutely a dust yourself up off and pick yourself back up story. So I've loved it, and I love the dynamic between Leia and Kenobi. Vivian Lyra Blair's been, I think, amazing in this. She was also amazing in Bird Box, and I know there's people picking on her too, but it's like she's an 8-year-old girl. Sorry, when this was filmed, she's an 8-year-old girl playing a 10-year-old Leia, which means she was 4 in Bird Box with Sandra Bullock, which is just uh, this whole series has incredible acting talent. And yeah, I really like the way it started. I don't know if you want to go to episode 3 or anything because I have my own thoughts there, but I really like it. Where are you with it? Like for me, this is the best Star Wars TV we've gotten.
I will agree. From a cinematic perspective, from a storytelling perspective, I made a post after seeing the first 2 episodes that I wish this show would get like a cinematic run because even with the the nitpicks that we have been exploring on a little bit on this episode, I still feel like it is the most deserving of the big screen out of a lot of content that we've gotten from the galaxy far, far away, probably within the last 6 or 7 years. It feels like a movie, and I turn off all the lights in my house. Like I have Alexa turn off as many lights as possible to make it feel as much like a movie theater as I can. And so I have very much enjoyed what I've seen. I think my biggest concern, and I don't really know how much I should be griping about this, but I guess I was a little concerned when I saw the Grand Inquisitor get killed off in episode 2. I remember Jason Isaacs' Inquisitor from Rebels, and there was a different storyline that happened compared to the one we were getting here. And I was hoping that maybe he didn't actually meet his demise. But now Vader in episode 3 is saying, if you don't let me down, then the role of Grand Inquisitor is yours. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I need to get some closure on that character and start thinking about how this is going to be centric around Riva now, which I'm totally fine with. It isn't a race thing; it's a continuity thing for me. And if that is my biggest gripe, if that's my biggest nitpick, then this show's off to a rousing start. Um, I'm with you that it does have a lot of Logan type impressions. Um, but at the same time, this type of storytelling is what we have kind of wanted as prequel fans for years now. We have wanted to see Obi-Wan try to communicate with Qui-Gon. We have wanted to see what life in the desert looks like. And that first episode, for some reason, I never put two and two together that he would need a 9 to 5 in order to live out in the middle of freaking nowhere. I never pictured him getting on a transport, going out to the middle of nowhere, and chopping up meat until an alarm goes off and tells him to go home. I never pictured him needing to buy things off of Jawas. Um, I would just I was just kind of surprised to see that is the direction that they took his character, but not surprised in a negative way, just surprised in the sense that I'm glad they're going to such depth and detail with a character that is deserving of said depth and detail.
I have been just blown away by the what I would even define as a character study of Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi. It's incredible the way they've done it. And the whole 9 to 5 thing. Yeah, it's like I wonder if Bail Organa could have afforded to spot Kenobi a few credits when he dropped him off on Tatooine 10 years prior. But I guess like it's not just a financial thing; it's a cover thing too, right? Like
Right.
he needs to be seen as just this. Oh, hey, that's that old stinky guy who lives in that cave.
But
And
I mean, that's kind of the way they present him in A New Hope. And it's like he's just a crazy old wizard that lives way out in the middle of nowhere and does nothing. And that's not the case.
no, for sure. I don't know how you feel about this man, um, but for me personally, I thought Owen was amazing in episode 1. Like, I couldn't get enough of Owen. It was like, okay, I gotta watch how I say this because 'cause I've been saying it different on our non-PG shows. Owen basically looked at Obi-Wan and was like, "Yeah, bleep you, and
Hmm.
bleep all the Inquisitors too." And I think most people I've always looked at Owen as the grumpy old man who didn't want Luke to have any fun or have any life, but in reality, like, he was legitimately trying to protect him, he loves him, and literally his point to Obi-Wan was proven seconds after making it, so, it's hard to side against Owen, and the performance is fantastic too, by the way.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Edgerton is great, and when he takes the toy and kind of throws it back at Ben, like he knew exactly where it came from. He knew exactly what the intent behind it was. Like he was on top of it, and the way that he was going after Kenobi was like, um, I know who you are. I know what you're about. I know what his father's about, and I know that I don't want this kid having anything to do with it. And it gives you a little bit more insight into his character, way more than you got in episode 4, and even more than you got in episode 2. And so, like, Edgerton is giving some depth to a character that was kind of a throwaway character um, in episode 4, if I'm being honest. And now he's got so much more to him. I'm loving the theories in the chat that you're highlighting right now. The idea that the Grand Inquisitor might somehow return, either with a Fennec Shan type of stomach, as Ridge points out, or Steven saying that um, Obi-Wan goes gray, healing the Inquisitor so that the Inquisitor can um, help him in the chase against Riva. Um, Obi-Wan needs whatever allies he can get at this point, and he found one in Deer of Arma, which was actually really satisfying for me as a Game of Thrones fan. I'm glad that they gave her character a lot more depth than just a standard Imperial. They made her like a Alliance spy, more or less, and so I really enjoyed what they did with her character and some of the other characters in episode 3.
The whole concept of the path has been incredible. The Quinlan moment, the other Jedi come through here, the transport to Jabeam.
Mhm.
I got some hot sauce I can dip here if you're okay with it. It's not anything I mentioned in the private chat. It's already happened. Just most people have probably missed it.
Uh yeah, we can touch on it for a little bit there. I'm still kind of wrapping my brain around it and trying to wrap my brain around the existing content, but yeah, let's.
Oh no, I'm not. It's not what I put in the private
It's
chat.
not what you put there. Okay.
No.
Okay, by all means.
So, do you know who Corran Horn is?
Yeah, I know Kronhorn. Yeah. He's from the Legends canon.
He's also the kid in episode 2. If you go into the credits, he's credited as Horn. He's credited as Corran, and his mom is credited as Niche. And who's Corran Horn's mom in Legends? It's Niche, and the child was also force sensitive. So I have a hunch we might see that character pop back up in Jabeam instead of the Corellia they were supposed to head to. So that was really cool, and officially in the credits too. So I wish they would have made more of a deal about it. It might have just been like a nice nod, but that's a little on the nose to have the force sensitive boy named Corran with the mom with the exact same name too. It's cool.
Oh, the one where they get help from the Jedi who's not really a Jedi.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. Yeah, it took me a second. I've only seen each of the episodes once, and so I'm like going through my Rolodex trying to remember exactly what happened in each sequence, because if I'm being honest, I was kind of a little bit more obsessed with who the Jedi was rather than what he was doing, because getting some of those cameos and seeing the excitement from their actors on social media being like, I'm in Star Wars, like that was just as satisfying for me as the character itself was. And so that is pretty cool. Do you think that'll be something that pops back up again in this show, or is that trying to set something up for something else in universe down the road?
I mean, regardless of how they address it, it's very clear that they're bringing a lot of legend stuff back into current canon, but just in different ways and presenting them in different packages. And for some people, they might not like it. I like it though. It's honoring them. It opens the door. There's a certain Star Wars character with the initials KK that's going to pop up in something not too long from now. So not Kathleen Kennedy either. So. Although she deserves some credit. Like, look at all the content that we have coming out over the next couple of years. So it's pretty incredible. On Steven's theory, though, here, if you don't mind me touching on it,
Sure.
I have no idea if anything like that happens or not. However, I love the theory, but how cool would it be? Now, if this does happen, it's going to make it look like I spoiled everything, but I swear I don't know. How cool would it be if Fight 2, which we also assume is coming between Vader and Kenobi, because we need to get to the when we met, you were the master and I was but the learner. So How
Right.
cool would it be if he did it for Vader?
If he did what for Vader?
That he healed Vader and stopped him from dying?
As a way of trying to redeem him and bring him back, and it didn't work?
We're getting to that whole, in my opinion, we're getting to the whole, the line he says to Luke in Return of the Jedi, which they've already addressed in Vanity Fair too.
Mhm.
The Obi-Wan once thought as you did in terms of trying to turn him back. We have yet to see that in any
Right.
medium, so it's coming. So I just thought Steven's theory there twisted a little bit. That'd be really cool. Still, to have Vader not turn would be kind of heartbreaking too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, and given the events of episode 3, which we can probably go ahead and talk about episode 3 now. We're deep enough into the show that people who don't want to hear spoilers of it can go ahead and turn it off or skip ahead or whatever. But I'm really excited to talk about episode 3. Um, given the events of that third episode, you can tell that Vader has a lot of bitterness and a lot of rage surrounding the events that transpired in Revenge of the Sith. And he has been basically bottling that up for 10 years, plotting his revenge, figuring out what he wants to do. And it just so happens that he finds Kenobi on a mining planet where one of the elements that gets mined is flammable, and he's able to, you know, execute that plan that he's been working on for the last 10 years and actually have it come to fruition. Steven, I'm with you that Quinlan Voss is going to pop back up again. He's just too cool of a character to not be included in the universe in a further capacity. So I'm with you that he shows back up. Um, I'm saddened that he only gets a reference, but I'm also glad that he gets a reference in Kenobi. But I definitely want more of him as well.
Yeah, I think he's going to pop up, but my prediction's in something much bigger than a video game. We'll see though.
Okay, interesting.
I have no inside knowledge on that prediction.
No, a lot of this is just off of speculation, and I get that because that's part of what I love about doing it on a week to week basis is we can sit here and go, what's going to happen in episode 4? What's going to happen in episode 5? Just given the what we've seen in the first half of the series, it was like pursue, fight, and now it'll, in my estimation, be more pursuit, and then a fight in the 6th episode, and like 2.0 will be the the culmination of what we've been watching up to this point. And so, there are a lot of movies that go in a similar format where you've got, chase scene, fight scene, some sort of a payoff that happens towards the middle of the movie, but it doesn't go in our hero's way, and then the next sequence, the next time they get a chance against this character, they fare a little bit better. I'm hoping it's not as predictable and tropey as I'm making it out to be. I'm hoping there's definitely a lot more depth to it, and I'm kind of in a similar wavelength of you and Steve and Sean, that there's going to be something that transpires in this show that turns him gray. Like, there's got to be something that explains how in 20 years he went from looking 35 to 75. And the precedent is already there with the Emperor exerting so much energy in the Force that he turns, 200 in a matter of seconds. So I'm really curious to see exactly what it is that makes him look the way that he does.
I I don't know if we're going to see his appearance change all that much in this 6 episode run here. But at some point, something's got to change because even though he looks older now, which by the way, they actually had to make Ewan look older than he actually looks.
Yeah, they still had to age him. It's been what, 15 years, 17 years since Revenge of the Sith, and he still doesn't look old enough to have aged 10 years in the show. Like,
And
in the
go
universe.
from that to Alec Guinness in 9 years, something's going to happen. I don't know if it's gonna be any force draining thing though, as much as it might be. He might have to go on the same journey that that Yoda did with Qui-Gon to figure out the whole Force Ghost thing. Because
Mhm.
obviously, at some point, at least in Legends material, he he reaches Qui-Gon. One would think that's got to happen. They've been hammering it on the nose way too hard the first 3 episodes for there to be no payoff on that. He's also a human learning it. I could see it being something along those lines. I don't know. That sounds like something we'd see in a book more than a TV show, but who knows? I think it'd be cool. It just seemed to have grounded a lot of these TV shows, but
Mhm.
I'd be up for something more luminous, I suppose would be a good word. For it.
Do you foresee a physical manifestation of Liam Neeson, or is it just going to be a verbal encounter?
I well, we know at least at the beginning he didn't fully complete the training, but
Mhm,
been gone for how long now, and time passes differently over there, and we
mhm,
don't know much about that other world of the Force.
mhm.
Um, but my guess is they've been hammering it on the nose way too hard for him to not actually appear. So,
Yeah. I would like to see it because we saw a physical manifestation on Mortis in season 3 of the Clone Wars, but then we don't see any physical manifestation when he is communicating with Yoda in season 6. So I feel like it's kind of a toss up. It may depend on Neeson's availability as an actor, to be honest. He's been a busy guy, always has been, and so um, I guess it just kind of depends. But let's talk about some of the set pieces and the characters that exist within those set pieces because I was a really big fan of the Imperial base that was set mostly underwater and having the Inquisitor's base out of there and having like a particular seat for the Grand Inquisitor that Riva was trying to occupy, and who was it? What is it? The fifth brother was trying to tell her to stay out of it. The dueling nature of the politics within the Inquisitors was really fun to watch, but then seeing some new planets and being told of new planets, even if it is being done with stagecraft, I like the idea that we're not revisiting Coruscant, that we're not going back to Naboo. I like that we started with Tatooine and basically aren't trying to beat you over the head with more Tatooine, more Tatooine, more Tatooine, like him going on these adventures, seeing Alderaan in all of its glory. Like this is prime Alderaan before it gets destroyed. um, I've been a really big fan of the exploration that they've been able to do, in addition to exploring certain characters like Obi-Wan and the Inquisitors.
I didn't really care for this last planet that I can't remember the name of now, but Alderaan and Dayu, which was like the Hong Kong looking planet.
Hmm.
Um, I thought they looked amazing, like absolutely, utterly brilliant, and we don't get to see enough of those type of environments in Star Wars. They've grounded themselves in this. I don't know if it's trying to be too much like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones with realistic environments, but we also need some sci-fi futuristic stuff too, because that's what Star Wars is as well. And I thought both of say what you want about stagecraft, but both of those look spectacular. And I do like that this is kind of been like a road show and not just the guy on Tatooine for endless
Hmm.
episodes. And the reason for him to leave is absolutely the best reason for him to leave. So,
Yes, yes, I'm with you on that. Like, I don't think there would be any other crisis. I don't think there would be any other situation other than something happening to one of the twins that would cause him to leave his post, more or less. And he does it very begrudgingly. Like he is not thrilled with the idea, and it took Bale coming all the way to Tatooine to plead with him for help. Um, but the planet you're alluding to in episode 3 is called Mapuzo. I just looked it up. I could have seen them trying to go to Kessel, but I know we explored that in Solo a little bit. So having another mining colony of sorts somewhere else kind of made sense, just to give you some more variety. Um, but I'm with you that this was probably the only reason in the galaxy that would cause Obi-Wan to leave his post, basically. And people are complaining that there's I'm legitimately curious as to why people are complaining about this, but they're saying that Leia's getting too much screen time, that she's having too many lines, and that her development is overshadowing Ben's development. And I'm sitting here going, what? Like, really? You've never complained about other dynamics until now, but now you're saying that a little girl is overshadowing Ewan McGregor. Like, I don't think that's physically possible. And I, for one, am a huge fan of Vivian Lyra Blair's interpretation. The costumes that they've selected for her and the charisma that she carries herself with is 100% what I would expect of Princess Leia. Like, she is carrying the essence of that royalty as perfectly as an 8 to 9, 10-year-old possibly could.
I'm gonna address what you said in a second there, man. Steven mentioned we still got to see more Baru. I'll be blunt. There was a whole sequence of Baru cut out of episode 1, and it included Luke. And I'm not sure why it wasn't there, because there was leaked photos of it too, and for whatever reason, it's gone. And I know it wasn't there because they're in the town when the Inquisitors do the thing to Owen, and in the actual cut that made it, not so much. So I don't know. They scaled back on her. Bonnie Peace, I believe her name is.
I can't remember.
I hope we see more of her too. Beru is obviously a huge influence on Luke's life. So, and honestly, if you read Queen's Shadow, I think's the last one, or Queen's Hope. Maybe it's Queen's Hope. I can't remember. They're the Padme books that have come out. There's a little bit of a Padme Beru connection in them too. So they're really good. Speaking of Padme, and going back to Vivian Lyra Blair as Leia, the choices for the costumes have been brilliant because they echo previous costumes worn by Leia in the original trilogy,
Mhm.
but they've also found a way to honor Padme. And I'm in the minority here, I know, but like, I'm team Padme over team Leia, and I love them both. And to see Padme getting her due during this has been some of the most emotional moments I've ever seen in Star Wars.
I've loved the way that Kenobi keeps alluding to Padme, even though he could theoretically also be talking about the the Organa family when he's talking about Leia's parents. But like, contextually, what he's really talking about. And I love that young Leia kind of started catching on, because her gift, what's so interesting, and it makes so much sense, is there are things from the Force that come naturally to her, but because it's so organic, it doesn't even feel like she's tapping into the Force, really. Her gift of insight is her Force power, in my opinion. Her ability to see through people and be able to see exactly who they are, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing. It's part of what helps her grow up to become such a great leader. You know, her ability to read a person and understand where they're coming from and be able to see between the lines is what makes her a general of the resistance. It's what makes her a 18, 19, 20-year-old senator. It's what makes her her. And you're seeing that as she plays off of Ben so well. And I've just been a fan of their dynamic, because it's that older person, you know, imparting begrudgingly. I would say it's a begrudging imparting of wisdom and expertise, cuz I don't think Ben is really very interested in training Leia. Like, he's not interested in helping her learn about the Force. He's not helping her try and tap into it, even though She theoretically should be just as force sensitive as Luke, but he's not doing that. Like even his description, you're muted again, bud.
And the way it played off to me is like he already sees her future, especially in episode 3, or at least
Mhm.
has an idea. Like he doesn't think that she's good Anakin. He
Mm.
thinks that she's good Padme, and
Mhm.
even to the point that when oh, can you show me how to shoot? He's just kind of like, and I'm not saying he's deciding her future for her. That's not the case, but like I think he's seen Padme just all over her this entire time and sees a leader there. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think that's cool. There's a family aspect to this show that's tragic, um, heartbreaking, and because like I know that maybe the prequel trilogy didn't do the best job of conveying how close Anakin and Obi-Wan were, but since then literature has, Clone Wars has, they really, once Anakin became a Jedi Knight, did become brothers, and even like the most recent book, Brotherhood, Kenobi owns up to some misdoings of his own and maybe not doing things right. Um, that's tragic. Best friend, that's his brother that happened to. Um, Padme's gone. The kids are here, and like I can't imagine like if this was the real world, what it would be like for him being on this mission with Padme. Like the emotions would be nice. It kind of leads to the third episode in the fight too, dude. Is like
Mhm.
he's going through this thing and he is not handling his emotions well
Right.
at all. And they're making it very clear every single episode. And that's the way he should be. Like that would be like, getting hit with a train of emotions out of nowhere. One day
Mhm.
you're cutting meat, and the next day you're hanging out with Padme and Anakin's daughter.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not just that. I think it's also the fact that he really hasn't had to utilize the Force all that much, and he's a bit rusty. And when he does have to use it, like you see in episode 2, he has trouble being able to, levitate Leia right before she hits the ground. Just using the Force to grab onto somebody is tough enough for him. And then by the third episode, he is sensing this wash of a presence that comes over him before he even lays eyes on what Vader looks like now. And within minutes, he's also then expected to um to fight his former brother. He's then expected to remember his lightsaber combat training, the lightsaber that he buried in the sand years ago and left behind. Um, it's there's a lot to it of him leaving the order behind and trying to live a normal life and now being thrust back into things that really really makes that fight sequence in the town look and feel a lot like A New Hope, in my opinion. The clash of the swords and the lack of grandeur that you see in Revenge of the Sith is now explained to a certain degree because obviously Anakin Vader hasn't really been dueling a whole lot in the last 10 years outside of hunting down a few Jedi here and there, and Obi-Wan hasn't sparred with anybody in years. And yet here they are face to face in one of the biggest conflicts that they've experienced in a decade. And the emotion behind it is just conveyed so incredibly well. Anyways, we have been talking about a character in the show who's going by the name Ben, but I think it's actually finally time to introduce the fellow who goes by that name on an actual literal basis. We said he was running behind, but he wasn't about to miss the entire podcast. And I think now's as good a time as any to try and bring in the third voice. And I know, Sean, you said you had a time limit this evening, anyways. So let's see if we can get Ben Hart in on the call. Ah, there he is.
Hello there.
General Kenobi. Boy, he hasn't heard that name in years. Ben, we were just touching on episode 3, and we can get some of your thoughts too once Shawn has to sign off. But dude, Shawn, what did you make of like the emotion and the gravitas of the final like 10 to 12 minutes of that third episode?
Okay, so I don't want to like act like a know-it-all, but it might come across that way. So
Uh-oh.
here, take yourself out of how Star Wars is filmed, because that is not. There's a wonderful article that came out today in Vanity Fair from Anthony Bresnikon with head writer Joby Harold, and it's funny because Ian and I had spoken about this long before this, a day and a half before this article ever came out, and I said, what's the main topic we cover on Fandom Empire? It's literally Halloween. And in this article, they describe Vader as Michael Myers from Halloween.
That's perfect.
It's
Oh,
shot
wow.
the exact same way. If you look at the way certain Halloween movies are shot, the way it's not shot like classic Star Wars. So I understand why purists look at it and go, okay, well, that's not how Vader is normally shot. No, they shot him way more menacing because he's not Vader from the prequel trilogy yet. Hayden, at the event that Ben was just at, which I'm truly jealous about, said multiple times, this is going to be a very conflicted Vader. This is not going to be original trilogy Vader, and it's also not Revenge of the Sith Anakin Vader. It's somewhere in the middle. So I thought the way they shot it was wonderful. It was, in my opinion, the most suspenseful scene I've ever seen in Star Wars. In terms of suspense and horror, the way the sudden head movements, which I've seen some people say that's too fast, they're shooting it in a different way, and it was breathtaking, man. I loved it. That said, I didn't love it the first time I watched it because I watched it like half awake.
Right.
These nuances. So when I seen it the following day, I had a chance to pick up on that, and I was like, oh no, this is. I dig this, but I understand why some Star Wars fans want Star Wars to stay the way it is and stay shot in a particular manner. But to me, that's the Darth Vader that we've heard so much about since 1977. Darth Vader hunted down all the Jedi. Well, I mean, that was incredible. I'd be curious to hear both of your thoughts on that before taking off here.
Ben, I've been talking about it a lot, so I'll turn it over to you. That fight sequence in part 3, starting with them in the safe house, all the way to the cliffhanger of an ending of an episode. What was your take, and what were your thoughts as you watched all of those things unfold?
Yeah, it does play out kind of like a horror movie. It's very just like he appears and reappears, and no matter how slow he walks and how fast Obi-Wan runs, you can't outrun him. He's always going to be right behind you or right in front of you. And it's brilliant the way they do it. And it's done in such a way, because like I was talking last night and being like, yeah, it's not the most like, brilliant location. It's just a quarry or something like that. It's not super like exciting, but they do enough with it. I have a little problem. I won't harp on this too much, but I have a little problem with like it looks a little cheap a little bit. There's some shaky cam, and there's just the reflection. It's just not. There's something a little bit off about it. I need to watch it again. And I'm not discounting it because like it's an amazing scene. It's really like what I wanted from this. It really was. It's a scene that I think we've been waiting for so long, and also I feel like it's needed now. I think this show is showing why it needs to happen and why we needed, despite what everyone thought, and even myself, go like, what? Obi-Wan and Vader met between A New Hope and Revenge of the Sith? How dare they? Ruining the canon. I think this makes total sense. When Ben Kenobi shows up on the Death Star in A New Hope, he's not surprised. He's not shocked. He just pulls out his lightsaber. Like, okay, here we go again. There's no surprise there. This is the surprise. This is the shocking moment. This is the moment when Obi-Wan learns the truth and sees Vader for all his might. I think it deserves this kind of reaction. Deserves Obi-Wan literally running for his life. This stoic Jedi, fearless, always just with the quips and stuff like that. How many times in the Clone Wars he's faced off against General Grievous and 1,000 other bad guys, not break a sweat, not scared in the least. He is terrified in this moment. The look on his face, Ewan McGregor sells it all. It is so good. And and obviously, I think this is not going to be their last confrontation. But I think as a first confrontation since Revenge of the Sith, I think it was really well done. The emotions there, the characters there. It's really, really well done.
I thought you nailed it. I said to Zach earlier, I think that Ewan's performance in you all right, Ben?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen a better acting performance in Star Wars than Ewan in these 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't touch on the fight itself, which honestly I thought was fine. It was exactly what it needed to be. You had a guy who was trying to buy time for his priority, Leia, but who was also just ridden with grief and guilt and heartbreak and fear, as Ben said. And not to mention, he's used the Force maybe a handful of times, maybe once in a decade. So like he's not attuned to it at all. He's Ben Kenobi in that fight. He's not Obi-Wan. I suspect by fight 2 we will see Obi-Wan Kenobi and not Ben Kenobi. But I liked it. And the Vader, I think you mentioned the Vader flame part earlier. I honestly viewed that one of 2 ways. One, he's literally toying with Kenobi and showing that, hey, I'll just hunt you back down. It's not a big deal. Or 2, he's looking at the flames. Like we see the reflection of the flames in his mask. And I get it, he's Darth Vader, but we've also established that Hayden said he's a very conflicted Vader. And I'm sure he's not overly eager to walk through the fire, given what happened the last time. And I'm sure there's fear there about the fire for him too.
Yeah, I was a little conflicted on the whole troopers trying to get through the fire and not being able to, and Vader igniting the fire, but then not being willing to like part the flames to try and get to Obi-Wan. Like he's basically just sitting there watching him get rescued. And I feel like it could be a mixture of PTSD and toying with him, but I still don't know what to make of that because it was his idea to start the fire and burn Kenobi, and he's established that he can levitate him. He can use the Force to levitate him from that distance. So I don't know why he didn't levitate himself over the flames. I don't know why he didn't pull Kenobi towards him
Walk through the flame,
or why he didn't just pull Obi-Wan through the flames to allow him to burn a little bit more and then just have like a half-charred Kenobi at his feet after pulling him through the flames. Like there's a lot of different options that he could have acted on and chose not to. So I'm really hoping that we get more Vader in the 4th episode that can kind of help explain and justify his decision making, because right now towards the end of that 3rd episode, Reva was kind of doing her job better than Vader was doing his. She was investigating. She found the secret tunnel. She found the passageway. Hell, she found Leia by the end of that episode and was able to presumably capture her. And Vader couldn't even capture Kenobi. He got away. So I'm intrigued to see if there's some sort of like flame related PTSD, and that's why he chose to build his base on Mustafar. Is he trying to like face his fear daily until he finally overcomes it and gets consumed by it? But I really do have questions regarding that decision making, but everything up until that was freaking awesome. Watching him decide to exact revenge and kind of an eye for an eye type of mentality was something I'd never really considered. I would have thought that he was just so consumed by hate that he would just want to kill him and be done with it. But it's a very, very dark side trait to do an eye for an eye type of thing and burn him the way he was burned 10 years prior. And so um, the story that unfolds is still breathtaking for me. I had a lot of oh wow, like eyes wide, jaw on the floor. Probably said a few words that I'm not allowed to say on IPC, um, but I I really enjoyed the way that episode ended, and my fiance did too. I told Sean this at the top of the show, Ben. Um, when it cut to the credits, um, she was pretty mad and wanted like the fourth episode to happen now, and I'm kind of with her on that. I
Yeah,
love
I think we're all
I
in the same
love the
boat
way
here.
this episode ended, and I'm glad that they're not doing like a mid-season break where you have to wait for a month to figure out what happens
Oh
because
God.
the type of cliffhanger that we got at the end of this episode is like the ones that you get like on the CW or on Paramount when Star Trek does their mid-season finale. They leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger and make you wait for like a month and a half, 2 months.
Returning June 28th. What? No!
Do not do that to me. Stranger Things is already doing that to me, and I'm not about to let Kenobi do it to me.
I do agree with your point about it doesn't make a lot of sense that he doesn't just pursue Kenobi. I think I can only come up with a retcon. The only retcon that I come up with that like makes sense to me because that's what I do. Things that I like that don't make sense, I come up with a retcon in my head.
Mhm.
I think he's pulling them all. I think you watch Maul in the Clone Wars, him trying to get revenge on Kenobi. He doesn't do it right off the bat. He has plenty of chances to kill Kenobi. He could just go in and just like stab him, and he doesn't. He wants to relish that revenge. And so I think with Vader, it's like, oh yeah, I'll get it next time. Like I'm just gonna let him go this time because now I've got purpose. Now I don't want to just kill him. I want him to suffer. I have suffered for 10 years. I want him to suffer and be terrified. And I'm gonna find him. And he's confident. So I think that makes a little sense. And we'll see. And there's always, I mean, how many times this happened before? The bad guys do something stupid. They're like, oh, we'll get him next time. We didn't actually, it's just like Thrawn in every other episode of Rebels. It's just like, oh, well, I let them go for my grand plan.
I guess the one problem that I have with that is he's been pursuing Kenobi for 10 years. And when he finally finds him, he slips through his fingers in a matter of minutes. And I feel like he would have had more zeal because in the opening scroll of Empire Strikes Back, it's like the rebellion has been relentlessly pursued by the Empire kind of thing. This didn't feel like a relentless pursuit, so I really want more Vader in the fourth part in order to help me understand what happened towards the end of that third episode there. But
Yeah, same.
I know, Sean, you said you had a limited time on this, so I'll just get your final thoughts on the third part and your final thoughts on Kenobi. Take as much or as little time as you want on that. I know you've had plenty of other videos to express these thoughts, but what do you make of the first half of this season, and what did you make of that third episode?
The story is riveting. It's amazing. The chemistry between Vivian Lyra Blair and Ian McGregor is on display every single episode, and it's very emotional to watch. It's a very character-driven story, and it's nice. Third episode was great. I liked that it was shot like a horror movie, and the only advice I'd give people is remember that this isn't episodic. It's one big story split into six.
Linear. It's linear. Yeah.
So don't jump to conclusions too fast. There's 3 parts to go, and let's see where it goes.
If you had to give it a score out of 10 now, though, we're doing like first half of the season and then end of season planet scores here on IPC. We'll probably end up touching base on this at the end of the series in a month or so. But if you had to give it a score out of 10 now, what would you give it?
I'm trying to math here. I'm really tired.
Are you trying to like divide it by 3 based on the numbers you're given for each episode?
Yeah, I gave episode 1 a 9.5, episode 2 an 8.5, and episode 3 a 9. So very high. It's very, very good. I like it.
That's that would be 27 out of 30. So that's a straight up 9 out of 10.
I am with Ben though. Ben mentioned a point earlier. I think he did anyways, unless I misunderstood it. That it kind of looks cheap at times. And I do think that's something that they're going to get better with time. The more they use stagecraft and the more that technology evolves, it will. And by the way, just to confirm one thing, I've seen this out of there. A lot of people are James Earl Jones is back at 91, and he's how did he return to form? And this is how he returned to form.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the credits. Not that that's a bad thing. We seen in the Book of Boba Fett, I believe it was the Book of Boba Fett. They did that for Luke. Lucasfilm is using all this just incredible technology. They're deep diving into it, and I think that's really cool. And I do think Vader sounds the best he sounds since the original trilogy. But I don't know if you guys caught it when he's talking to Reva.
Oh yeah,
sis. I was like, that's pulled right from Return of the Jedi.
Oh my gosh!
He says,
that's not a new performance. It's an old performance.
He says third sister.
But if you think about it, of all the characters to create a synthetic voice for, Vader makes the most sense because that literally is a synthetic voice in universe. That's not how Hayden or James Earl or any of those guys sounded. So it makes total sense to create that. I think obviously if you watch like from Return of the Jedi to Revenge of the Sith to Rogue One, James Earl Jones's voice has gotten deeper, and it's kind of weird when you're like, okay, the movies are kind of out of order. I think this definitely sounded like younger Vader. It sounded more closer to A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
And I think the actor still deserves the credit. It's still them using his performance, not only from Star Wars, but from other movies to compile it together. Yeah, loving it so far, guys. I hope that you guys get just as much enjoyment out of it as I've gotten.
I'm looking forward to revisiting it in a few weeks. When in 2 weeks we're going to be talking Dominion, Jurassic World Dominion. But then by the time 2 episodes from now, Kenobi will be finished. So early July, we'll be doing another Kenobi discussion. So y'all be on the lookout for that. Should be a really fun time. But Shawn, I appreciate you stepping in at the last second there. I know you were supposed to just hit launch and then go upstairs and be with your family.
Yes, thank you for covering for my ass tonight.
But it's always fun having you on, and I'm really excited to be talking House of the Dragon with you in a couple of weeks. That's going to be launching in the near future. So if y'all enjoyed the discussions that Shawn and I have, then head over and join us in Westeros in a couple of weeks here on the channel.
I don't know about you guys. I don't know how people that love multiple fandoms are going to be able to keep up with Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and Andor all being out at the same time in the same stretch. That's insanity. I don't know if you've ever had 3 blockbuster TV shows airing at the exact same time on that level, on those budgets. It's nuts.
Well, and
we've got The Boys, we've got Stranger Things, we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi right now.
Crazy.
And for all we know, there may be some Star Trek show that's on in the fall as well, because they've been pumping out.
And also Strange New Worlds has been going on and continues.
Strange New Worlds is happening over on Paramount right now. So for all we know, we could get something.
It's too bad there's nothing on TV these days.
I can't keep up. I can't. I try, but I can't. Anyways, boys, thanks for having me. Congrats again on 8 years. I know it was a couple of weeks ago, and
dude, you just hit 5,000 subscribers on the channel. Congratulations for that. That's awesome.
It's appreciated. We're putting out a lot of content these days, and I'm already stressing about how the hell we're going to keep up with October. HE double hockey sticks, not the other word. My bad. Anyways, guys, have a great night.
You too, man. Thanks again. Well, Ben, it's
Alright.
just you and I then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kenobi just a little bit more so we can get some of your thoughts if your nose doesn't fall off before then.
Yeah, in case you weren't aware, I got a little bit of the con crud. Okay, so
Ooh.
bear with me. Bear with me. It's going away. It's not the Rona, thankfully. I got tested for that. That's a good thing. But yeah, it's just a lot of blowing of noses and a lot of stuff I won't get into because it's gross. Okay, it's very gross.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had that gross for about 2 weeks now, and I need to go see like just a doc in the box at a care now, get some sort of prescription because Mucinex and ibuprofen ain't cutting it. It's just keeping everything at bay, but it's not solving my problems. So I get it. I get it.
I just shook too many hands and hugged too many necks. It happens.
Oh yeah, you were you were seeing a lot of people. You were peopling a lot more than I'm comfortable doing. Um, Star Wars Celebration, and we're gonna get to that as long as your voice holds out. But let's bring up the third episode, chapter 3 of
Yeah.
of Kenobi. They just narrowly escape at the end of the second episode, and things come to a head. And it, this was funny for me to notice. The transport driver Freck was voiced by Zach Braff from
Yep.
Scrubs. That kind of threw me for a bit of a loop there, but I really enjoyed their interactions with Freck, and I really enjoyed the scene at the checkpoint before you even get to the town, because those laser beams cutting the trooper in half when he fell off
Oh
of the
my
post.
god.
Oh man, you take that and you take Vader force choking innocent civilians until Kenobi reveals himself, and you have got some of the most intense gore related topics that you've seen in Star Wars all wrapped up in one episode.
Some of the most horrific Star Wars storytelling we've ever seen in this one episode. And also some of the most I don't know, relatable and most timely, I think. I liked Freck. I like Freck a lot because I think not that I think he's a good dude. I don't think he's a bad dude. I think he's just a middle of the road. I think we need characters like him to show
Mhm.
that hey, not all we've kind of dabbled into not all Imperials are bad type of thing. But I think it's important to point out characters like Freck who are true believers. Who are
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with a little bit of order. Nice to meet some like-minded folks. He's so jolly and nice, but he's talking about some really dark stuff.
Mhm.
But that's how regimes like that are like the Empire are held up, is by people like Freck who are just doing their duty, who are just hey, this is okay, this is normal, and and he's not a bad guy, he's just misled. He's just hey, this is the way it is, and I believe in this thing, and it helps to ground you, and also to remind you, say, hey, sometimes it's not everything. We can have good intentions, but it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, well, I think too, Freck is seeing only a fraction of the Empire and what it's capable of. And he is only seeing what he chooses to see. I feel like there's a lot of other stuff that the Empire does that he just chooses to ignore. Um, and by doing so, all he sees is the law and order, and all he sees is the the guys that are hitching a ride to their nearest outpost. Like, they know him by name. They're like, "Is your transport late again?" And they're like, "Yeah, as usual." "All right, well, hop in and meet my new friends." And when they disembark, they're like, "Oh yeah, thanks, Freck. See you later." Like, he's friendly like with them. He knows them, and yet he like you said, he's just probably a little disillusioned as to what the Empire truly is and what it's truly capable of.
Yeah, he's not like, especially being an alien. The Empire really doesn't usually like aliens,
Mm-hmm.
but he hasn't felt the full force of the Empire. He's just like, hey, it's benefiting me, and you know, he's got a homemade Imperial flag on the back of his truck.
I
He
pointed
is full on Empire, man.
I pointed that out to my fiance and told her that doesn't look like it was made. That looks like it was like created. Like that wasn't something he bought at a store. That was something that he made to show that he's on the winning side, essentially. So
He's
yeah.
that reminds me of the one moment in Star Wars Rebels where Kanan's like pretending to be drunk, and like Ezra's trying, like, and he's like, "Empire Day, all hail the glorious Empire!" And it's like that guy for real.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Our friend George in the chat says, you forgot about Vader snapping the kid's neck when he came outside, Zach. No, I did not forget. I definitely did not forget.
Oh no, how could you forget that?
Kind of hard to forget that type of brutality that's exemplified by Vader's character. And I don't know if you've seen this meme, Ben, but I'm going to circle back to the neck snapping in a second. But I think one of the other really telling things is some of the subtleties of Vader's character. That is one of those. It's not directly seen, but when you look between the lines, it's implied. The trooper that asks for credits in the second episode
Yes.
wears armor that resembles the 501st.
Yes.
And you're seeing a clone that has reached a pretty advanced age because of his growth acceleration. And he's homeless. He's asking for money just to buy a meal. And I saw a meme that was captioning how if Anakin was still around, he would not let that happen to his friends. These were his comrades at arms. These were his brothers, more or less. He was joking with them. He was adventuring with them. He was winning battles with them. This would not happen if Anakin was in charge, but it would happen under Vader's rule.
Yeah, I saw that meme. I think I might even posted that meme.
You probably did. I may have seen it from your retweet or something, for all I know.
Maybe, but yeah, because I saw that. I think I saw it shared around, and I downloaded it and I reposted it today. Really good meme, and I like how the messaging of it is like it shows how much Anakin / Vader has changed, and you go back to the Umbara arc and the Clone Wars, and the clones are like, this guy Karel, he's always in the back. General Skywalker's up in the front. He's the first guy to go into battle. He's there protecting us. He's putting his life on the line for us. They understand how much he cares about the clones. And now you have this poor guy lying in the gutter asking for credits. And it's just so sad, but also how far Anakin himself has fallen that he's allowed this atrocity to happen.
And then he commits atrocities on Mapuzo, circling back to what George was talking about in the chat. He gets there and he can sense the presence. And I love, again, this is not something that gets directly spoken, but it's another implied thing that when you've seen the series, you know exactly what this is supposed to mean contextually. Before Obi-Wan even sees Vader, before he even sees him, he senses him.
Yeah.
And that sensing a presence goes all the way back to 1977, where the Falcon has been captured and Vader looks around and he's like, I sense something, a presence I've not felt since. He may have been talking about Mapuzo. He may have been talking about wherever they encounter each other next in this series. A presence that I have not felt since, and then it trails off. The presence that Obi-Wan senses is the same type of heaviness, that spiritual heaviness that Vader senses in A New Hope. And all it takes is a look of terror on Ewan McGregor's face for you to start putting the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out that is what it's alluding to. It's just, the storytelling is so good.
And it's a role reversal, really, if you compare this scene to A New Hope.
It is.
It's Vader getting the drop on Kenobi. In A New Hope, it's Kenobi having control of the situation and kind of slipping past Vader and being like, "You didn't see me," and then Vader's like, "Nah, I saw you. I felt your presence." And then he goes to Tarkin. And he's like, "Yeah, I know he's here. I haven't seen him, but I felt his presence. I know that feeling. I know he's here." And Tarkin's like, "Nah, that guy's already dead. What are you talking about?"
Oh man. See, what's funny is I just saw the original Star Wars on a big screen on like a replay.
Oh,
Somebody
wow.
somebody had like a 77 type film where you don't see the upgraded Mos Eisley like you do in the
pre-special edition. Wow.
pre-special edition where Han shoots first and Han shoots only. Greedo doesn't even get to fire a shot in this version. There's no conversation with Jabba the Hutt.
No McClunky.
There's no McClunky. There's none of that. And it felt like I had traveled back in time or something. It was so fun. But to know that there were those hearkenings from 77 implemented in this show was so satisfying. It was so satisfying to see those things happen. And then coming back to George's comment, snapping of necks. Like, we've seen him grab people by the throat in a menacing and threatening way. And we've even seen him kill Admiral Ozzel and Captain Nita in Empire. But those are Imperials that failed him. These people didn't do anything. They are innocents. They are civilians. And Vader will literally stop at nothing in order to get to Kenobi, in order to draw him out. That is the brutality. Letting a 501st brother be begging in the gutter to killing a minor's child is the extent of evil that Vader has stooped to.
Yeah, and you go back. I just talking about Star Wars Celebration. I just got a chance to watch the Siege of Mandalore on a giant screen with a bunch of excited fans, and it was amazing. And there is that moment at the beginning of that where it's like Anakin's all like chummy and he's like, "Hey, we need to do this thing, Obi-Wan, and you need to let the stop the people from suffering in the city. We need to save them." And here he is causing the suffering just to get at Obi-Wan, just to make him angry, get him to draw him out, just to do that, just killing people for no reason. And that's what makes him so great. That's what I think makes Vader such a scary villain, that he is so he will kill, do whatever it takes. And if you get in his way, or you don't even have to get in his way, you're probably going to die. And it probably, makes sense that, Obi-Wan's just now finding out about him 10 years later because everybody that's interacted with Vader is probably dead or on his side.
Well, and, I think he's lived such a sheltered life that he thought maybe that part of his life was behind him. And he thought, I've killed my brother, but I can still protect his kid. Like, he probably sees Luke or Leia as like his godchildren, essentially. And I was touching on this with Shawn before you hopped on, but literally it was Leia's kidnapping that drew him out of his solitude, and I feel like that would be one of the only things that would draw him out of Tatooine. I don't think any other galactic event, I don't think any other atrocity would have pulled him from his protection of Luke, but it was a situation involving Leia and a personal plea from a friend like Bail Organa that actually convinced him to leave his post and go on the adventure that we see in this show.
Yeah, it's wild, and I see what they were talking about. They would, Hayden and all those guys were talking about how angry and violent Vader was going to be. This is the angriest and the most violent version of the character we've ever seen.
Well, I mean,
And
you saw the way that he used his saber to lash out at Ben. Like the choreography is nothing like we saw in Revenge of the Sith, but the sparks that fly and the purple hue that glows from the clashing of the red on the blue,
right.
like that is just anger. That is just pure unadulterated hate that is spewing from his actions there. And it's fascinating to see how their fighting styles have evolved.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, any more thoughts on episode 3? I know you've talked about Kenobi a lot. You've probably talked about it on the SWU a lot. You've talked
A
about
little
it in
bit.
person, but just so that there's a few more thoughts for our IPC related listeners, what do you make on the first half of the season, and what did you make of episode 3?
Overall, I've really enjoyed it. I think this is a stellar season of TV so far. We've gone a lot of places in a very short amount of time and done
True.
a lot. And I appreciate that about a series, any series that can keep the pace going. And I think it's paced very, very well. Nothing bothers me more than a show that feels like it's running in place, and Obi-Wan is not doing that at all. And I've really enjoyed that. And I mean, I've had a few gripes and complaints about some visuals and stuff like that, but like plot wise, story wise, like I think it's really, really great. I love where they're going with this. We're apparently going to Jabin or Jabim, I think his name. Always said Jabim, but it's Jabim. It's from the comics, from the Marvel comics, or not Dark Horse comics, the old school Dark Horse comics. Back in like early 2000s. There's a whole thing with Obi-Wan and Anakin, so I don't know if that'll be referenced or whatever, but that's a thing. So that's gonna be interesting next week, hopefully. Maybe there's a rebel base there. Just saying. There was concept art about rebel base, I think, that showed up at one point. So who knows? But enough about the future. What we're talking about now is these first 3 episodes. I think they're stellar, and I'm really looking forward to where this goes. But I don't know. Are we giving scores? Should I give a score?
Yeah, we have been. I asked Shawn for his score, and I was going to give mine. And we can ask whoever's still watching live with us. I know we got a few people still in the chat. A couple of them dropped off after Shawn left, and I was like, "Well, thanks. That makes me feel good."
I not to be offended. Jeez.
You see this guy's face, and you're stuck with my face, and you're just like, I'm out. But
yeah, you're not investing unless the boss is around.
Right. But if it's out of 10, for those of you in the chat and for the guy next to me here, out of 10, what kind of a score would you give the first half of Kenobi?
I think I'll give it the same score I gave it last night. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I have very little to complain about. It really is. It's something. It really is something. All the little bits, everything from, the big broad strokes of Leia and, Obi-Wan and Vader to the small details. I love, Haja, I think is his name, from the second episode. Riva is amazing character. It's an Obi-Wan show, but it's also, I think, the supporting cast has been really, really good. So that's where I'm landing.
I'm rather partial to Sung Kang as the 5th brother.
I liked him a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, he's really growing on me a lot more than I expected. But the competition that's going on between he and Riva is something that I'm really looking forward to continuing to watch, because I don't think he's going to last. I think it's more meant to be about the third sister, but I'm curious to see where it goes between the two of them. The more I've talked about it tonight, the more convinced I am to bump my score up a little bit. I was coming into tonight ready to give it like a 8.5, but I think the peer pressure and just the general liveliness of tonight's conversation may be convincing me otherwise. So I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 out of 10 also. I'm with Sean that I wish it had a bit more longevity to it. I wish the episodes were a little bit longer. I wish
Yeah.
there were some pieces that got expanded on a little more and some pieces that were expanded on a little bit less. But overall, I'm enjoying the storytelling, the acting, the planet exploration, the nods that are happening to the Clone Wars, that are happening to the prequels, that are happening to the original trilogy. Steven even alluded to the idea that some of the interpretation of Ben Kenobi's character is similar to how Luke behaves in The Last Jedi. So there's even some sequel trilogy connections that are being made, and
Yeah.
so as a whole, this is a very comprehensive and complete story that's being told with a really really solid cast and some really fun adventure type stories being told, and um, I'm I'm inclined to give it a 9 as well. Um, our friend Steven, who's still with us in the chat, is giving it an 8 out of 10 overall on these first few episodes. But keep in mind, folks, we're only halfway done with this. We've still got another half of this show to watch before we can make any final judgments. And what I'm really curious to see is, do our scores hold up? This is like our mid-season finale type score, but is that score going to hold up moving forward with these final 3 episodes? So we'll probably have to pull these planet scores back up in a month or so and see
Take
if
notes, guys. Take notes.
start taking those notes and be like, is it actually going to stay a 9 out of 10 for us, an 8 out of 10 for Steven, or is it going to be something else when all of it is said and done?
It could go down and come back up. I think a lot of Disney Plus series have had, have some dips and stuff like that. Not every episode is perfect.
Mm.
I think Obi-Wan has been one of the strongest so far. It has definitely kept my attention. And there's no episode so far that I'm like, I don't really like that episode. I'm like, all these episodes have been really,
Mm.
really good. Like, they've all been really good. I have my
Yep.
qualms with them, but overall, they've been really great.
Yep. It's a fair point. Before we go into the second half of our show, I want to give a special shout out to the folks that financially contribute to this program, especially Joey Mays and Jesse Bennett. We appreciate your support of this program. They are both at the shout out friend tier or above, and the link to the Patreon is like right around there on the lower third, patreon.com/IPC podcast. If you want to financially contribute to the show, you can. We appreciate anything that you're willing to put forward. It helps pay for our hosting platform. It helps pay for a couple of other things, the occasional movie ticket and things like that. But you can get all kinds of really cool access, exclusive groups, behind the scenes info. You can influence discussion topics on the show. You can get access to the show notes. You get top billing on top 5 segments. You have potential to even join the show depending on schedule availability. So be sure to hit us up at patreon.com/IPC podcast. Our friend Jesse also has a show called Question Possible Answer, and I'm going to be joining him on that show pretty soon, I
Ooh.
hope. He's invited me on. We're just working on getting our schedules together. But over at Question and Possible Answer, we review movies while also trying to incorporate real world physics into the movie and see how much the story would change. Sometimes it's as simple as, what if this person wasn't in the movie? For more information, check out the socials on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for the words Question Possible Answer, and you can listen to it on your favorite podcatcher. So be sure to check them out. Our friend George sent us a chat saying it's 9 out of 10. The only problem I have is with Reva as a character. Her anger, arrogance, bleh, and utter contempt for following orders is going to get her killed.
Fair
Uh,
point.
I appreciate that there are like some specific characteristics that you are pointing out about Reva as a person rather than Reva for her skin color.
Yeah,
That
that's nice.
that is something that we have to be very, very specific about, because of what's transpired recently. Not going to get too deep into that because
Yeah,
Sean and I
don't
touched on it a
just
little bit.
go out in there and say that you hate Reva for
Mhm.
reasons. Like be specific. Like have some actual thoughts behind your thing, because yeah, people might assume things because there's a lot of idiots out there.
There's a lot of that stuff, and Sean and I touched on it a little bit at the top of the show, but I said it before and I'll say it again. I have no patience and no tolerance for people that are just being idiots. Like I don't have time for that in my life. I'm way too busy to put up with the BS that other people are trying to put out there. I'm not having that conversation. Not here, not anywhere. I'm just not.
Thankfully, there has been a lot of not just praise, because you're welcome to your opinion either way,
Mhm.
but support for Moses Ingram and the character of Reva, that has been showing, and very much, at least in my timeline, drowning out the morons. So that's been good to see. So it's been good to see Star Wars fandom actually overall doing something positive. So keep it
Good.
that way, guys.
Yeah. Let's keep that positivity going. Let's put the peace back in intergalactic peace.
There you go.
Okay. Second half of the show going to be a little bit shorter than the elongated Obi-Wan Kenobi discussion. I feel like Ben is about to hack up a hairball. If we're not,
I'm gonna power through this, okay?
if
I'll
we're,
try not to die,
if
okay?
we're on this show for too long, do you feel up to giving like a brief recap on the celebration experience? I didn't get to go. I haven't heard a whole lot of stories. What can you tell us about what made this particular celebration so special? You've been to several. What made this one like stand out?
Yeah, this was a special one for me. And yeah, if I pause in the middle of this, just stay with me, okay? I'll be back in a second. But right now I feel good, and I'm gonna keep talking as much as I can because I have a lot to say, and there's a lot to talk about with this specific celebration. I think this is a very special celebration for me personally. Um, it was, it was in a way it was a challenging one. There's a lot of going on, but it might be one of my favorite celebrations so far. I got to hang out with a lot of really cool people. Eric Wall, I'll give a special shout out to him because he's been on this show. He's co-hosted with us more than once, I believe. He's been with us since the Backyard Watch days. Got to hang out and see him for the first time ever, which was amazing. And that was just a ton of fun. So seeing him, it was great, and so many other people. And I mean, that was the highlight. Just being away from everyone for so long was not cool, not great. So getting to see everyone again, I think, was the true highlight of it. But we got a lot of really cool things, and I'll try to run through. I did make a few notes. I'll try to run through kind of each day's kind of big reveals. We could talk about them a bit. But we got some really good content. I know not everything was streamed. I know you can probably find it somewhere. Cough, Reddit, Star Wars leaks, probably cough. But overall, I got to see most everything. I got to be in most of the panel rooms, which I was not expecting to do. And by the end, I learned how to work the system and get into the panels that I wanted to. I'm just saying, okay. I will admit nothing here, but stuff happened, and it was fun. And but yeah, I mean, there was just so much. I mean, you had a lot of teases, even some non-Star Wars things, and some things that I was hoping for we got. And just overall, it was big. It was tiring. I just about died halfway through. Saturday, I was like, I'm not going because I had like plans Saturday night. I'm gonna do something. I'm like, no, I'm going to go home. I'm gonna sleep because, yeah. And that's kind of when this whole thing started,
Right.
because I think it was part of what was brought on by exhaustion. I was
Yeah.
so exhausted.
Yeah.
So fun fact, this is a thing I'm going to practice in the future. About halfway through Friday night, take the night off, go back to your room, get some sleep rest, because I felt so good Sunday after a good night's rest. But because it's just so much, and we did Disney, and I got my lightsaber blade. It's not here. It's being shipped. It's on the way. but just so much happened. I spent way too much money. It's embarrassing. And but yeah, and I really want to go run through this really quickly, because there is a lot of stuff. Some things that I think everyone has seen by now is the on Thursday we had the Lucasfilm Showcase panel,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the first things they showed us, I think, was the Andor trailer,
Yep.
and that was amazing. You got to see this, right?
I saw Andor. I saw some descriptions for Willow and Skeleton Crew and a promo image for Indy 5. The big one that seems to have not been able to get out, except for maybe some parts of Reddit, was a look at Mando Season 3. So let's talk a little bit about the Andor trailer, and then I want to hear from you, from the guy who was there. I want to hear some more about Mando Season 3 also. Shawn isn't here in the video with us, but I remember him saying at a different time that the Andor trailer surprised him in a very good
Me
way,
too.
because there wasn't a whole lot to go off of from it, but he said it reminded him the most of Game of Thrones than anything else, which to him is kind of the gold standard. Game of Thrones for him is like the gold standard. And for Andor to give him Game of Thrones vibes was a very pleasant surprise. And so just hearing that alone, coupled with the excitement that I've heard about from it from Diego Luna himself and Star Wars Twitter, I'm a little bit more hyped for it now too, and I really wasn't going in.
Yeah, it's very visually stunning. I mean, there was a lot of visuals in that trailer, not a whole lot of dialogue. At least none that really made sense to me. Because you have the old lady at the end like saying, "There's a reckoning." I'm like, what does that mean? But then, it's just so abstract in a way. You have the opening scene is a guy in a bell tower and he's gonna freaking drum on this thing, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on, but this looks amazing. And then there's just like these stark colors, these bright white environments, and all these white clothes, and Mon Mothma looks amazing. So many different things in there. And I was definitely surprised by that trailer. I'm glad that they released it, because in my opinion, it's the best trailer they released during Celebration. Not to say the Mandalorian season 3 trailer wasn't pretty good, and that Bad Batch trailer was really good, and all that stuff, but Andor was like, whoa, I was not expecting that at all, and I'm really looking forward to that. And it's not very far away. We're getting it in a couple months.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that it was coming, like the first episode's late August, right? I think it's late August. I know he's about to cough, so I'm asking him questions when he's got to take care of what nature tells him he's got to take care of. But Andor, I believe, is like late August, and then early September you're going to be getting the Lord of the Rings TV show. We're just
Right.
gonna be having a lot this fall. Um, which is both exciting and terrifying, because I'm going to be working. I'm going to be getting married. I'm going to be doing a lot this fall, and trying to keep up with TV is probably in the lower on the totem pole than I'd like it to be. But having Game of Thrones, having Andor, and having Lord of the Rings, that's going to be a really big 1, 2, 3 punch for viewing this fall.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, one of the biggest highlights from Celebration the whole weekend was I met Steven Shinder. Saw him in the flesh. I proved that he's a human being that exists in real life. He's not just an avatar on the internet.
He's not a troll or somebody from a parallel universe. That's crazy. It says, I saw Ben briefly. He's in the chat with us still. Said, I saw him briefly, but forgot what we said exactly. Do you recollect what was
I don't
said?
either. We were going into the Rancho Obi-Wan thing, and we were like, hey, bye. We saw each other. It's all that matters.
You saw each other. That's the important part. You saw each other. Okay, if you can hold off coughing long enough, what can you tell us about Mando season 3? I heard
Oh yeah.
that I heard through the grapevine that there was a scene on Mandalore itself, or a brief shot or sequence.
I think I've seen the trailer 3 times because I went to 2 different panels, and then they showed us an extended teaser at the Mando Plus panel on Saturday. So it's kind of in my memory better than a lot of them, but I'm still going off memory. Basically, we got Bo-Katan on like a throne on like another planet. Doesn't seem to be Mandalore, maybe it's another planet. We got what looks like there's like this flyover thing with like some ruins. I didn't recognize them at first, and I was like, "Wait, what is that?" Looks like Death Star 2. No, it's the ruins of Sundari from Mandalore. It's the big
Oh,
dome, but like the dome is gone, and they're like, there's
dome
just
crash.
remnants left, and it's
Ooh,
Mando
yeah.
going there. He's going to Mandalore. That's the big tease
Nice.
here, is that Din Djarin and Grogu are going to Mandalore, which is really interesting.
Nice.
There's a lot of Mandalorians, like a ton of Mandalorians, like the levels that you saw in like Rebels and Clone Wars. Like there's that many Mandalorians in this show. Like it's crazy. Yeah, like tons, all different armor, stuff like that. Trying to think what else. And actually, like I'm sure there's a bootleg version of it somewhere.
Probably.
And then
Yeah,
there's Doctor.
I like hearing it from in the flesh though, because there's always something different about being part of an exclusive group that actually got to witness it with your own eyes, you know?
Right. And then there's Dr. Pershing. He's kind of in plain clothes, kind of seemingly undercover. Don't know what he's doing, but he's out and about doing stuff. And I'm trying to think what else. Just a lot of really kind of flashes and stuff. Oh, there's some Babu Fricks. There's like Babu Frick from Rise of Skywalker. There's a bunch of them, like a whole family of Babu Fricks. I don't know what they're doing.
Interesting.
And then there's a whole tree full of Kawaki monkey lizards. I remember that.
Oh,
Like
man.
they're all looking down, like laughing at people, like.
Wow. Okay.
And then Navarro is like really souped up now. Like it's really like fancy smancy, and Grief Karga has an even fancier uniform.
Yeah, they keep giving him upgrades, basically. Like he keeps getting suit and uniform upgrades. Whoever is in control of his character is spending all of their gameplay chits on new clothing and new apparel for him. But that's that's exciting to hear, man. Like watching the Din Djarin scenes in Book of Boba Fett, it seemed kind of obvious that they were alluding to a potential return to Mandalore. Says, how can I atone, that kind of thing. And you have to go to Mandalore proper. And it almost sounded then that like maybe it was an abandoned planet, maybe there was nothing left. But from the sound of it, maybe there's more to it than meets the eye. Maybe there's more to it than what the Mandalorians are letting the Empire know about them, perhaps. And
Right.
and the prospect of him having to meet Bo-Katan over stewardship of the saber, that's all going to be playing into this season, and I'm here for all of it.
Yeah, it definitely and also there's a line where like they're in a cave, and then like Bo-Katan meets Grogu, and she's like, did you know your dad wasn't the only Mandalorian?
Yeah, because he hasn't really seen very many others. Not a whole lot.
I just love that she called him dad.
Yeah, that too. Family is what you choose it to be, not always what you're born into. What can you tell us? I know there's probably not much, but what got discussed about Skeleton Crew, if anything?
Okay, so they didn't talk a whole lot about it. They kind of brought John Watts and the other guy, who I'm forgetting his name, out. They basically said that it's kind of a bunch of kids kind of lost in space. It is set during the time of the Mandalorian, so assuming that there will be a crossover between Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka and Mandalorian and all those shows. And Jude Law is in it. And so that's really all they told us. And they gave us the title, which was more than I thought they would give us, honestly. But yeah, it's written and directed by John Watts. So after Spider-Man, he's going over to Star Wars. So I'm interested.
Interesting. And honestly, having John Watts from Spider-Man and having Jude Law from Fantastic Beasts coming and working on a Star Wars project, that doesn't sound too terrible. So I'm rather intrigued to see what that turns out to be. I heard that it's going to have kids in it, but isn't written or geared towards kids. So it may be like a Stranger Things type of vibe where it's accessible to all ages, but has like a younger cast with like a coming of age type of storyline.
If it's meant to cross over and it is in the same time period as Mandalorian, I would expect a similar tone and feel to Mandalorian, since
Mhm.
all those shows. It's kind of we're calling it the Mandoverse, but it really is. I think it's kind of like the MCU in regards to like everything's going to be kind of similar, different, but also very similar in a way, so that when they cross over, there's no problems.
You don't have a whole lot listed for Friday, mostly just Young Jedi Adventures and Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, because I don't think we didn't have a big panel on Friday. There was a panel for Light and Magic, which is a upcoming docu series done by Lawrence Kasdan, and I believe
Okay.
Ron Howard's in it. I went to that panel. They didn't. I mean, it wasn't like big news. It was just like they're talking about it. It was fascinating because they're all big people behind the scenes working there for 40, 50 years at Industrial Light and Magic. You had
Mhm.
Ron Howard and Joe Johnston and Dennis Murin and all those guys. It was fun to sit back and listen to them talk, but no big reveals. I think it's coming out in a couple months on Disney Plus, so definitely, like, from what I heard, it's going to be a really great series. So definitely check that out. Young Jedi Adventures. I know nothing about this because they didn't announce this at a panel. Neither one of these things, Jedi Survivor, we were doing something else, and they just
Uh-oh.
dropped that trailer. I'm like, there wasn't a gaming panel. What are they doing? Like, I remember just like watching the trailer. I'm like, wow, they dropped the trailer. Like, what wouldn't they do that at a panel? Like, what does this mean? So, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but we didn't really have any big panel reveals on Friday. It was mostly just that, unless I'm just completely missing something.
I I would know. I was there. Steven in the chat says they also had the 20th anniversary panel of Attack of the Clones on Friday. But
Okay, see, that was, again, not necessarily newsworthy, but amazing, amazing panel. If you get a chance to, like, I think it was on the live stream, go watch that panel. Tim Morrison was on fire. He was so good, and he was just like, and then he gets on stage, and everyone's like, "Dude, like a bantha, like a bantha," and he just starts doing it. He's like, and Matt Wood's like, "Dude, you got to do it now. You got to do the meme." And he does it. And then later he revealed that was actually improvised. That wasn't in the script. He made that up on the spot. Or he could be lying and trying to take credit for it. Who knows?
maybe
But according to the official word from Tim Morrison, is that like a bantha, the classic meme was completely made up on the spot.
that's hilarious. I love seeing people like in their true form, like getting to be their whole complete selves, and to go from 20 years ago being Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones to now getting to circle back and be like his successor, be Boba Fett. Like and did they CGI him into Kenobi, or did he actually shoot a scene with Ewan also as one of the troopers?
See, I assume they had him on set. I don't know. They didn't talk about it. It was so
Hmm,
new. I think they were scared to talk about any spoilers related to Kenobi because it just came out
True,
the previous day. But
true.
I would have loved to have heard his thoughts on that. But
Yeah.
I think no one on any of the panels was willing to talk about Kenobi because there were a lot of people, not like a lot of mixed company. Even though we had a free screening there at the thing, anybody could go to it. Didn't want to spoil it for anybody.
Um, what it did you catch much about Jedi Survivor? I know our gaming fans out there are going to be really interested about it. The folks over at Outer Rim Transmissions, like Star Raptor, are probably going to go into way more depth than we will because they're just more into gaming than we are. But what did you pick up on from Jedi Survivor? It's a follow up. It's a sequel. Um, does it seem like it's going to follow a similar format and a similar story, or is it going to go a different direction?
Well, there was talk early on, or at least a few months ago, that maybe it could be different character. Doesn't necessarily. They were calling it Jedi Fallen, the Star Wars Jedi franchise. So it wasn't necessarily So people were speculating that maybe it won't be just about Cal Kestis; it could be about some other characters. But I speculated right back that I'm like, Cal Kestis is such a beloved character. Why would you get rid of him? And
Right.
they took my advice. They took my advice. They knew what I was right.
Yeah.
So you got Cal Kestis back. You got BD1 back. Seems like a true sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. There's a giant Powin guy in there doing some stuff. I actually haven't even watched the trailer fully, but I know I saw some of the imagery. And then there's someone with a red lightsaber. Don't know what's going on there. I know our pal Dan Grievous thinks that the survivor is Mace Windu. So that's like the most intriguing theory I've heard about the whole thing. But I don't think the trailer gave us a whole lot in regards to this. I think it's coming out next year. But it's good to have confirmation. I'm glad they dropped it during Celebration. People were able to talk about it and do all kinds of stuff. And it looks really good.
Okay, well let's talk about Saturday.
Yeah.
The two big ones. I mean, we talked about the Mando trailer a little bit. Tales of the Jedi, and then they had an Ahsoka panel. And even though it's been filming for only like 3 weeks, they gave some info on Ahsoka. I'm inclined to talk more about Ahsoka than I am Tales of the Jedi. I'm intrigued by it, especially its Clone Wars style animation and the fact that Qui-Gon Jinn's going to be one of the storylines that gets focused on. But what stood out to you from those two pieces, Ahsoka and Tales of the Jedi?
Okay, so basically what happened on Friday is the first big panel of the day was the Mando Plus panel. And
Okay.
so they got the whole cast of Mandalorian, and of course you got Tim Morrison again back, so representing Book of Boba Fett. And then they brought out, well, at first they showed the trailer again with more footage. So there's like a secret Mandalorian trailer, Mandalorian Season 3 trailer. There's another secret Mandalorian Season 3 trailer with additional footage. And they haven't released either of them. But it's coming back. So, and then towards the end of the panel, they brought up Rosario Dawson for Ahsoka. Right. Previously, she sent a little video message from the set on Thursday saying that she couldn't be there, but she was doing some stuff on set. But then they said, "Hey, we got her back." So she was on the stage for that. And then they introduced Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who is going to be playing Sabine Wren. And I think before that, they actually showed a little bit of footage, no special effects, nothing, just basically some shots of kind of like a temple or something like that. Ahsoka going through there. There's some interior shots of what looks like the T6 shuttle. If you remember from the end of Rebels, there's a ship that Sabine and Ahsoka fly off in at the very end. It's that ship. So you see the inside of it. There's another ship interior, and then there's someone that looks and is dressed very suspiciously like Hera Syndulla. And then at the end of the trailer, you see the mural from the end of Rebels, but it's live action. And then Sabine walks.
It's a real mural.
It's a real mural taken from the animated show. It's the exact same mural. And cool. Sabine walks into frame, and you can see her like she's a live action character, and she's standing there, and you only see the back of her head, but you can tell it's Sabine. And then 1 second.
He got so close. He came so close. Oh, this is great television for those of you watching on your devices. Ben just kind of haunched over. We don't know if he's coughing or barfing. It's one of those. In 1 second, he says. Oh, dude, we're almost done. I promise. We're gonna
survived.
We're gonna get through this, and then a little bit of Sunday.
I have so much to say. This is really pissing me off because I have so many things to say. But before it was over, they brought out Chopper. Seemingly confirmed that he's in the show too.
Yeah, I heard that. I saw pictures.
Yeah, and he was like very animated, like a different kind of live action Chopper. His head kind of wobbled around, and he had the thing. It was very much like okay, this is the one they use in the show. Like this is the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they actually brought out Grogu. He was on the table. He was like the 9th or 10th guest. And the real Grogu, he's just sitting there, and like Favreau brings him up and puts him on the table. And he's just waving around at everybody. And Favreau's like, hey, sit down. And he just sits down, and it's just like the whole crowd is just like freaking losing their minds because it's Grogu. Just
That's
insane.
awesome.
But yeah, that was the Mando Plus panel. That was everything there. And so we got a lot of footage there. And I don't know, you have anything to add to that?
I'm excited that it's happening. I'm excited that they gave a little bit of a tease. I guess I'm nervous because there were a lot of concepts from Rebels that felt like they only translated well in animated form, and I'm curious to see how they'll try and translate it into live action. Obviously, Sabine and Ahsoka and Hera are probably like the 3 easiest characters to translate to live action.
Right.
Chopper is one of the easiest to translate to live action, but like, what outside of Grand Admiral Thrawn is the story going to be about? How does it incorporate into the Mandoverse? Is this like a prelude to a Defenders style Star Wars TV storytelling where we get Skeleton Crew, we get Ahsoka, we get Mando, we get Boba, we get, maybe one other show that's out there somewhere, and then we get something where they all kind of cross over and they all kind of come together, kind of like they did with the Defenders on Netflix. Don't know if that'll be a good thing or if that'll be a not good thing, but I saw that she got some elongated Leku as well. Did they touch on that any during the panel?
They didn't talk about that at all, but yeah, you definitely notice if you see the comparison photos, there's definitely some lengthening to her head tails.
And I'm glad that they're taking notice of that kind of thing, because like that to me is right up there with the people from Sonic taking notice of the comments talking about the Sonic character design. That's like, hey, this could be better. And I don't think there were a whole lot of people that were like super pissed off about the way Ahsoka looked in Mando, but the fact that they're taking those comments to heart and trying to improve upon it is something that I really respect. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're listening to those people. Really quickly, I went and found the IMDb of Natasha Liu Bordizzo. She is a actress born in 1994, so she's about as old as I am. I was born in 93.
She's younger than me. Jeez.
Born in Australia, and really, I haven't really noticed anything that is stuff that I recognize her from, but her acting career on IMDb didn't start until like 2016, 2017. So she's fairly new to the acting scene in general. And she was in a TV series called The Society, and she was in a TV series, like a TV short series called Most Dangerous Game. Most recently was in something called The Voyeurs, and she's got some new releases called Day Shift and Heroes of the Golden Masks that is finished but not released yet. And then her most recent acting credit is Ahsoka. So I think she's only got like 16 total credits on IMDb.
Wow.
So she's very new to the scene, but she won the role of Sabine, and I'm curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, and they seemingly Filoni kind of hinted around it, like 'cause a lot of people have drawn, have asked the questions about, Tia Sarkar is right there. Why don't you just use her? She's an
And
on-screen actress.
she's
What's going
done
on there?
both. She's done both live action and voice work. You can't just claim her to be just a voice actress, because she had a role on The Good Place, which was a live action TV show.
Right.
So
Yeah.
she does both.
So and Filoni kind of talked about it a little bit. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was seemingly in response to those people going like, okay, what's going on here?
Mhm.
And I was one of those people. I was like, hey, why you not doing Tia? But at the same time, I look at Natasha and I'm like, yeah, she does look a lot like Sabine. I could see her, give her purple hair and Mandalorian armor. She can do Sabine. So, like, I'm reserving judgment. I was one of those people like, why not do Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka? And then I saw Rosario Dawson. I'm like, okay,
Okay,
I accept
that's
it.
why.
I accept it.
It's like that's
So
why.
I'm not prejudging right now. I'm just kind of going with the flow and seeing how it is. But it seemed like they're really, I think Filoni's really taking it seriously and being aware of where the fans are coming from.
And the timeline for that is like, I believe, spring of next year. I think is what I saw. They're gonna do.
Yeah, because it's filming right now, literally right now.
Well, okay, no wait. Mando is spring of next year, isn't it? Mando's like February.
No, Mando is February. Mando is definitely coming
Well,
February.
okay, in Texas that's spring.
Fair enough.
In Texas, spring starts February 1st. But if the Andor show is in the fall and Mando is in February, then I wouldn't expect Ahsoka until probably summer of next year then.
That makes sense.
Because considering they've only been filming for like a month, there's a lot of filming to do. There's a lot of post-production to do. And then you've got to do the last-minute touches, and you got to do the promotions and stuff. And you got to make sure it's not overlapping with other Star Wars content. So I feel like we may expect it around Star Wars Day or something like that. Like summer, like late spring, early summer would be the soonest I would expect it.
I think they're definitely ramping things up. We're gonna have a pretty full year this year, but definitely next year is gonna be really full.
Because we're getting the Bad Batch this fall too, aren't we?
Right. Yeah. So that's coming this fall. So that's
coming.
crazy.
That's coming this fall. So it'll probably be overlapping with Andor a little bit, won't it?
Yeah,
Or
I imagine, because
or
Andor is like 12 episodes.
So it'll be interesting to see. But that kind of leads us into the last day of some of the big celebrations reveals. Star Wars Visions Volume 2. If I'm being honest, I never finished Volume 1, and I kind of need to. There were definitely a few that I really, really appreciated and enjoyed, but there are some big time animators from some big name studios that are going to be a part of Volume 2. And I even heard that there were some producers and animators and directors from Brazil that were going to be a part of Visions Volume 2. And so the international exposure is going to go beyond just Japan and some of those stereotypical places, but it's going to some very creative countries and some very creative people this season as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed Visions, Volume 1, so I'm really looking forward to Season 2 and seeing what happens there. I did not go to that panel, so I didn't get all the details.
How dare you? You were there in person and you didn't attend everything.
I had a previous engagement, okay? Siege of Mandalore was right there. I had made a choice.
Nah, it's all good. I probably would have made that choice too. I love the Siege of Mandalore arc,
but okay, we did skip something really quick. I need to go back. So, Tales of the Jedi.
Okay,
how much do you know about this?
I know that it's in the Clone Wars animation style because I saw some concept art of Count Dooku with a blue lightsaber, and I know that Liam Neeson is confirmed to be reprising the role of Qui-Gon. And that means that there's going to be like a younger version of Qui-Gon and then an adult version of Qui-Gon, possibly some sort of connection between Qui-Gon as Dooku's apprentice as a Jedi, that type of thing.
Right.
But all I know is it's like kind of pre-episode 1 type content in the style of the Clone Wars. That's about all I know.
Yeah, Tales of the Jedi. The reason I don't want to skip it is because low-key is like one of the things I'm most excited about from Celebration.
Oh, really?
Because that was a great panel. They showed us the first episode of Tales of the Jedi.
You saw a whole ass episode.
Whole ass episode. So
how long are they? Are they like the length of Clone Wars episodes?
15, 20 minutes. So not as long as Clone Wars, but more along the lines of a short.
Kind of like what Visions does.
Right, something like that.
Okay.
But basically, it's from what I understand, and like I said, I'm kind of going off of my memory and all this kind of stuff, there's 3 Ahsoka's episodes and 3 Count Dooku episodes. And you're right, Liam Neeson is back as Qui-Gon. Liam
Okay.
Neeson's son is playing young Qui-Gon. So that's
cool.
interesting.
That's cool.
Seems to be that one of the Ahsoka episodes is about her maybe acquiring. There's a story about her acquiring her lightsabers from an Inquisitor, and her fighting against an Inquisitor at some point. They showed a trailer, and it was a bunch of stuff. It was Yaddle fighting Dooku and all kinds of wild stuff. The first episode is about Ahsoka, and it's baby Ahsoka. This is, for those of you who know the story, Ahsoka is taken as a toddler by Plo Koon, is chosen as a Jedi. This is prior to that. We see the very beginning of Ahsoka. This is day one Ahsoka, and then up to a year-old Ahsoka. And it's just a little kind of story. It's just kind of a very withdrawn, not a lot of dialogue, just very emotional, very just kind of spiritual in a way. I forget her name. I forget who's actually voicing her. It's Aiden Versio from why am I Janina Gavankar. How did I forget her name? Janina Gavankar is voicing Ahsoka's mother. So we get a big character out of Ahsoka's mother. And there's a whole story there, and it doesn't even go up to when she's taken as a Jedi. It's purely on Sheely, where she's a year old. But then there's other stuff happening, and yeah, it's pretty wild. So this is the thing that I'm like, I came out of that panel going like, because we know nothing. They didn't tell us anything aboard. They just said, "Tales of the Jedi, be there," and we were there. And they ended up showing us an episode and a full trailer, and it looks spectacular. It's the animation style is as good or better than Bad Batch and Clone Wars. It's really, really good. So I'm very much looking forward. It seems like Corey Burton is back as Count Dooku. And there's a lot of other stuff going on that's just wild.
Dooku's handle with a blue saber was the thing that drew me in. I was looking at that going, wow, I've kind of always wanted to see Dooku as a Jedi, and I've always kind of wanted to see what kind of a relationship he has with Qui-Gon. And maybe it gets touched on in books, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not as enmeshed in the books as I used to be. Honestly, the last book I read from cover to cover was probably Jurassic Park back in 2014. Like, I didn't even read my textbook. I didn't even read my textbooks in grad school from cover to cover. I just read the stuff that was important. So, like, I need to get back into reading books and reading comics and stuff. I've got other things on my plate, and you know how that is because you've got other things on your plate too. And so trying to get all of that to come together and to work out the way you want it to isn't an easy accomplishment. But
right.
We're
okay. So back to where we left off. Bad Batch Season 2.
Yeah.
That was also a great panel. Got to be in the room for that. Got to see Filoni. He actually just introduced the panel. He'd actually come out and do that. He was mostly giving the spotlight to the actual creators of the show, which was great. And they talked a lot about the show. They had a Michelle Ang, who plays Omega, and they had D. Bradley Baker, who plays things, and they did like a whole routine. They did like a table read and did a whole scene from season 1 just on stage. It was amazing.
That's cool.
D. Bradley Baker cannot help himself. He is all the clones at once. So much so that David Collins was like, "Hey, what does Echo think about this?" And he would just go into character. He would just go off, and he would not stop. He would switch between Wrecker and Rex and Tech and Echo and all of them. And it's just amazing. And also Michelle Ang is like 100% Omega. There's she doesn't change her voice and like
she's getting into character. She's just reading the lines from her own voice.
She's just 100% that character. But that was me. And they showed the trailer. They showed us a little clip, and they showed us the trailer. And if you see the trailers and trailer online, it's different. It's drastically different than the one they showed to us in the room. And the one scene that I think they left out, actually, most of the footage is in there, just jumbled up in a different way. The one scene that they left out in there is a scene between uh Crosshair and Commander Cody. So Commander Cody is going to be showing up in season 2, and he's having some doubts. He's like, what's going on? What's all this? What's the point of all this? He's very doubtful about the Empire and what's going on. So he's Commander Cody, the true believer, the one who betrayed Obi-Wan, is not even on board with the Empire, which is cool.
Well, I mean, that kind of harkens back to some of the stuff that we saw in the Umbara arc, where they're like, someday this war is going to end, and what's going to happen afterwards? Well, the war is over, and this is what's happening afterwards, and maybe the clones aren't as on board with it as they thought they were going to be. So,
It's gonna be interesting.
I'm glad to see that they are fleshing that out a little bit.
And also, Gunji lives.
What?
Gunji lives.
Really?
Gunji is back. The younglings are back. That Wookiee Jedi is back.
That was who it was. It wasn't somebody else.
I mean, who else could it be? Come on. Who else?
I don't know, but like I know that I saw a Wookiee Jedi, but I had a hard time believing. But I guess considering what we saw in the prologue of the Kenobi series, there were some younglings that made it out. But I guess I just assumed that the younglings that did make it out were the ones that got groomed into becoming Inquisitors. So
Someone actually looked at the trailer and said they might have seen a grown-up Petro in there too. So I'm assuming we'll see more than one youngling, maybe.
I mean, honestly, I don't hate the idea. I mean, I was a little taken aback by seeing a young Caleb Doom in the first episode, but it didn't like ruin the show for me. So this feels very much like an extension of my favorite show as a child. You know, like I'm basically getting more Clone Wars just under a different title, under a different name. And I'm okay with that. I'm very on board with having more of the Bad Batch, having more tie-ins to the Clone Wars, the preludes that it could have to Rebels. Like, could we end up seeing a very young Sabine at some point or something? Who knows?
We've seen her mother already. We saw her in Clone Wars, so could be.
It's not impossible.
So Clone Wars. I love Clone Wars, my favorite TV show of all time. But one of its flaws was that it introduced a lot of things. Looking at you, Clonezilla Beast, and it didn't follow up on them because it would wait, 2 or 3 seasons, and then the show got unexpectedly canceled and whatever else. Also, I will say there was a beast in the trailer looking remarkably like a Zilla Beast. So it makes me wonder. Really making me wonder that they might be bringing that back too.
And the reason we don't see it in something like Rebels or Empire is because the Bad Batch is able to take care of it before it reaches that point.
I mean, the Empire having technology for impenetrable armor, like that's a big thing to have out there. Seems like the Bad Batch needs to come in and take care of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm on board with that because there's enough potential in there for like at least another 2 seasons, probably 2, maybe even 3 seasons, depending on how they want to take the story and how they want it to grow and develop. So, I'm interested.
Yep.
Okay, let's do like a celebration recap. How was your experience? How was IHOP, and which piece of Star Wars related content excited you the most?
Overall, Celebration was amazing. IHOP was especially amazing. We're definitely doing that again. There was kind of a collective agreement among us that that was probably the best thing we've ever done in our lives. And it's weird to say that, talking about an IHOP, but I think it was true. It was just so much fun. And thanks to everyone who came out to that. That was really special. And then I mean, Like Andor is really good. I'm gonna still go back to Tales of the Jedi. I cannot wait for that, man. It looks really good.
Well, I'm jealous that you guys got to experience all that. Chris was in the chat a little bit earlier saying that y'all missed having me there. I missed being there, but trying to get time off of work and trying to get the finances in order and get all of that stuff put together, just a little bit too tough for me to be able to swing this time around, but I was definitely following along with all the stuff you guys were doing, and it was fun to watch and kind of live through vicariously. So I probably can't make any promises about England next year because they've already
Totally
confirmed
understandable.
that's where the next celebration is supposed to happen, is across the pond. But if it comes back to the States in 2024, who knows? I'll be a married man by then, hopefully working a different job by then. So maybe circumstances will be a little bit better than what we've had recently. So glad you
Yeah.
guys had a great time, and I'm looking forward to whenever that next opportunity may come up. Because honestly, I haven't seen you guys since before COVID shut everything down back in December of 2019. I saw you more recently last year
Right.
towards the end of the year when we swung by and had dinner, but haven't seen the crew very much since then.
That was
But
a long time ago.
that is kind of appropriate for our next segment because the last time I saw you, we had a big barbecue dinner, and our last segment of the evening is the segment that has stood the test of time. We're on episode 348 now, and we've probably discussed it 345, 346 times prior. We've had to forego it every now and then just for the sake of time. But for those of you who know, you know that it's time to get out those hashtags and put them in the chat, put them on social media, and join us along for another edition of hashtag BBQ Watch.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. We used to have special music for that, but we can't really do it now that we're live on YouTube. But maybe eventually we'll find a way to bring it back around, because I was kind of proud of that barbecue segment back in the day. But yeah, man,
Look,
I
if they're
love.
listening to the audio version, they're still hearing it.
Oh, really? You're still throwing it in there, huh?
Of course I would. I wouldn't miss that.
I'm so far behind on like my Podbean listens to stuff that I don't even catch those little nods. Um, by the way, I don't know if you caught on to this, but I accidentally used our IPC Podbean account to sign up for a couple of podcasts that I wanted to listen to
Oh,
personally. So if you get notifications about a New Girl podcast dropping a new episode, um,
that's
that's
good.
that's me. I apologize. I am
I
obsessed.
haven't seen that yet, but I'm gonna look for it now.
I am obsessed with those TV show recap podcasts that have the actual cast members going back and doing the watch
That's
throughs and then
good.
discussing them on the podcast. I've got one for New Girl. I've got one for Parks and Rec. My fiance sometimes listens to one that does it for episodes of The Office. It's called the Office Ladies Podcast. And so that's kind of been my guilty pleasure when I'm driving around for work these days. But I totally spaced and forgot to open a new Podbean account, and I accidentally hit subscribe using the IPC profile. So that's just a thing. But barbecue watch. We're not talking about New Girl. We're talking about barbecue. And you've been traveling around a lot. You went up to Kentucky. You went up to Indianapolis. You flew out to California. What have some of your barbecue related experiences been on your travels, my friend?
I had a few actually. I'm gonna stick to one tonight because my voice is gonna
Yeah.
go any moment now. But also, I want to string you guys along, and sometimes where you don't have a topic, and I have a couple in my mind. One happened more recently, but this one tonight I'm going to talk about is happened at Churchill Downs. For those who don't know, this is in Kentucky, where the Kentucky Derby is held every year. I've actually been here before, but not to this extent. There's a whole museum and everything like that. There's really cool. Completely just weird to do it on the way to Star Wars Celebration because couldn't be more unrelated, but still very, very cool to see. And they have a little restaurant there. And it's Kentucky, still the South. They're very proud of the barbecue. So there was a barbecue pulled pork sandwich on the menu at the little cafe. And I'm like, okay, why not? I don't really want a burger or whatever else they were serving. I'll do a pulled pork sandwich. So I order it. And I actually posted a picture of it in the Intergalactic Peace Hangout group. You can see it for
Yeah,
yourself.
I saw that. It was pretty
Very
good.
classy. Very classy.
looking. The plating had like a blend of like a what is it? A auditorium, a stadium type of venue with like the checkered the
Right.
checkered paper kind of reminded me of like what you would get a corny dog or a hot dog at a baseball game with or something. But the plating and the arrangement of the food also looked very upscale.
Very neatly stacked. And then there's like a pickle next to it. And like, I can't remember what there's some kind of little salad or whatever next to it. And it's the first barbecue pork sandwich I've ever had that was on like bread, like actual bread. One second.
Like a loaf of bread or maybe a roll or something. I got to go back and look at this delicacy now because like I would just assume that sandwiches are on bread. That's kind of the way it works. So now I gotta go look at this again. So Intergalactic Peace Hangout. By the way, go join that group if you haven't yet. Just it's part of the Intergalactic Peace Coalition. We do a lot of announcements and memes and stuff like that. And whenever we're doing barbecue updates, you'll find it there as well. So go to IPC Podcast on our socials, and then go to the Intergalactic Peace Hangout. I'm seeing it now.
Now, I know that sounded weird. Bread. You think, okay, yeah, of course it's on bread. But I usually
sourdough, maybe?
Yeah, it's like a toasted like bread. It's not like a bun. It's not like your standard like dome topped bun.
Almost like a grilled cheese sandwich type of
like
bread.
a club sandwich like that, and it's mashed down to not flat, but to a relatively small size. Grilled probably. They put it on a grill and put a little thing on top of it to grill it. And there's things. Not a lot of barbecue sauce that I could taste in there. I'm assuming there was some in there because they wouldn't be calling it barbecue. And it wasn't that bad. It really was pretty good. I have to give them credit for it. But definitely one of the fanciest barbecue sandwiches I've ever had. Because usually you get them and it's sloppy and it's on a bun and it's all this kind of stuff. This was nothing but that. This was just a fancy sandwich.
Now I see like some sort of a pickle spear and then some sort of purple garnish next to it, and then just the sandwich.
Cabbage or something, I think.
There's no like sides or anything. It's just the sandwich on a tray. Can I ask how much this fancy sandwich with a pickle spear ran you?
See, I'm gonna have to actually look it up because I can't remember.
Okay. It's not a big deal, but my guess would be like $14 or something like that, probably.
Probably. It wasn't like we could have eaten in another place and we didn't. So like I don't think it was super like ridiculous. But they do have kind of a captive audience
in
there.
Our corner too. What did you get to drink?
I got sweet tea.
There
sweet tea there.
There you go.
So I had to get my sweet tea in because I was going to California and I knew they wouldn't have sweet tea there.
Yeah, they don't. They have hot brewed tea that you can drop ice into, but that's not iced tea. That's not sweet tea. That's just tea with ice. That's different.
And then actually the last night I was in California, we went to Bubba Gump, and they had sweet tea, but then it was like weird. It didn't taste quite right.
California sweet tea.
Exactly.
Oh, dude, looking at that picture, it's making me hungry, and it's after 11 here, and it's after midnight for our producer and buddy Shawn out on the East Coast. So we probably do need to call it a night. We're coming up on 2.5 hours of doing this show, and it was a fun one talking about the new Kenobi series, and we'll do a full Kenobi recap in about a month, talking about how the entirety of the show went. But it was great getting to catch up with you post celebration and post some of the episodes of Kenobi. If people wanted to keep up with your thoughts on the show and your adventures and maybe your photo dumps of your trip to Celebration, how can the folks at home do that?
Yeah. Real quick, first of all, $13 is I just looked it up. The price for Los Angeles.
I was close. I said 14. If this was Price is Right, I'd be really, really close.
There you go. You were very, very on the money there. But yeah, go follow me personally at Ben Hart with no E on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I haven't posted anything on Instagram yet. I'm going to start doing that very soon. Definitely go over to at the SWU because I've been posting a lot over there. Still have a backlog of stuff to post. Posting a lot from the Mandalorian experience, which was, you can get a chance to talk about that tonight. One of the most mind-blowing things I've ever seen in my life. Okay, it was freaking great.
I saw a lot of people posting pictures from that, like the full Cad Bane costume, like the bantha. That looked awesome.
Really hoping that turns into like a traveling exhibit or something like that. Like they would be remiss not to like have that on display for everyone to see because it was special beyond words. But I got a picture of just about everything in there. So go over to the Star Wars Underworld and see a picture of all the stuff. I know a lot of you can't be there, so I did my best I could. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. But yeah, definitely go try to follow us there. And of course, Culture Slate, we're doing a whole. They shot a bunch of video content. So definitely go subscribe on YouTube to Culture Slate because we're gonna have a lot of documentary style stuff from Celebration coming out within the next few weeks. That's being edited as we speak, and that should be a lot of fun. And I'll be posting my personal pictures as we go through that on my personal accounts. But yeah, I'm gonna shut up and get some sleep, guys. It's been a week. It's been a freaking week. It's been a freaking day. Okay. Hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I will be back to normal. I will feel normal. I won't have to bow out every 10 seconds to cough out a lung. But thank you so much, Shawn, for filling in and keeping the show going. Thank you all for your patience. Thanks, Zach, for being back and keeping this here show together. And I'll see you guys on the flip side.
On the flippity flip, we'll see you in about 2 weeks to discuss Jurassic World Dominion. You may actually end up seeing like a mini episode on Facebook Live or something, doing some sort of a review with my buddy Mondo. We are setting it up to where we're going to see the movie 4 times in 4 days, in 4 different theaters, in 4 different formats. We're seeing it in IMAX. We're seeing it in 3D. We're seeing it in Dolby. And we're seeing it at a new dine-in experience that's right by my house. It'll be 2D but with some great new foods. So go follow me at Zach the Voice on all the different social platforms, and go follow the IPC podcast on Facebook and Twitter, especially, maybe even on Instagram. Who knows? But we're probably going to do like a special miniature live episode sometime next week, possibly talking about our thoughts on Dominion. And then we'll have a full Dominion episode in 2 weeks' time right here on the IPC podcast on Fandom Empire Live. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of the IPC podcast. Go find us at Patreon at patreon.com/IPC podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, but you can find it mainly on ipcpodcast.podbean.com. Follow Fandom Empire. They have a ton of content that's being pumped out that's Star Wars related, that's Halloween related, that's wrestling related. If you're a wrestling fan, like there's all kinds of great stuff here on this channel. And be sure to leave a rate and review of the channel and of our podcast wherever podcasts can be found. Swag is available at tpublic.com/user/IPC podcast. I just got some swag from the USFL, the newest pro football league. That came in the mail finally. I've been waiting for that for a while. And Shinder's reminding you to watch Camp Cretaceous Season 4 before we get to that discussion in 2 weeks, because from what Trevorrow told us, Dominion actually has some loose ties to the newest season of Camp Cretaceous. So I'm really looking forward to all of that as well.
That's great.
But I think that is going to officially do it. After over 2.5 hours of content, it's finally time to put IPC and Mr. Hart to bed. Episode 348 is now officially in the books for Shawn, who was on earlier, and for Ben, who is here now. I'm Zach Arnold, thanking you so much for tuning into this episode of the IPC podcast. We're looking forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time to talk about dinosaurs, and in 4 weeks to wrap up this Kenobi discussion. But until then, good night, everyone.
This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me!
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.